Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 7 of Declutter week, where I tried for every single day for 7 straight days to post my declutter videos, but we didn't make it quite every single day for 7 straight days. So I apologize for that, but today I am just bringing you my final cut of everything. So it's every declutter excluding lips, because this video is already going to be so long and my lip declutter was well over an hour. We're excluding lips, but if you missed my lip product declutter and want to catch that, or want another declutter video, another long declutter video to turn on, I'll leave that link down below. But it's my final cut of everything, so going through my entire makeup collection excluding my lip products and really trying to just declutter things so that my collection feels a little bit more manageable and like I can get to more products more frequently. So that is today's video. If you're excited, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like project painting content, palette themed content, or just chit chatting about makeup, I'd love if you'd consider subscribing before moving on. And other than that, let's jump into the video. Okay, you guys, we're gonna start with likely the least exciting declutter portion of my entire declutter series. The only one that might be about the same level of excitement that I can think of would be like lip gloss. But this is my primer collection, and this is primarily going to be just a collection video. The only primer that I will be getting rid of today is my Milani Glow Primer, and this is just because this has definitely gone off. It's gone bad. It feels disgusting on the skin. It smells really bad, and I just cannot make this one work for me. Aside from that, for the most part, I really try to make primers work for me. Yes, if there's a pilling issue, I would declutter primers with pilling issues, but I don't have any pilling issues with any of the primers here. So we have my Tarte Timeless Smoothing Primer. I did purchase this earlier this year. I have gone through a full size of this. I did just purchase the mini because I knew I had a larger primer collection, and you really just need the smallest amount of this to fill your pores. But if you are looking for the best pore filling primer on the market, in my opinion, I really like the Tarte Timeless Smoothing. I do have some other pore filling primers I'm currently trying to get through, and we'll eventually get to this. Then I have the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Glow Serum Primer. This is a really, really beautiful primer, especially if you like something that is more glowy. It feels really hydrating and luxurious on the skin. It smells like a watermelon Jolly Rancher, which I can't complain about, and I really enjoy this one. I have this one from Tula. This is the Filter Primer. I've actually gone through 2 full sizes of the Tula filter. This is my 3rd one. They did send this one to me, but I did purchase the other 2 myself. This is my favorite primer for matching my face to my body when I have more of a self tan. This has a bit of a tint to it, and it definitely feels more like a tinted moisturizer rather than just a true primer. It does have a filtering aspect to it, and this is something I see myself always having in my collection, so obviously gonna keep that. I'm gonna go through these 2 e.l.f. ones right now. I just recently purchased the e.l.f. Jelly Pop again. I've owned this in the past. Really like this one. I feel like it has a good grip to it. It is nice and glowy, and I really enjoyed the e.l.f. Dewy Pop or Dew Primer or Jelly Pop. And then when I couldn't get this, I purchased the Power Grip Primer with 4% niacinamide, and I really enjoyed this as well. I'll be interested when I bust into this one again if I have a preference of this one over this one, or this one over this one, or if it really doesn't matter. But the e.l.f. is such a great option for a gripping primer, no matter the price point. I love it because it is not super expensive, but I will always have one of the e.l.f. gripping primers in my collection because I like a primer that is really gripping. I will say I definitely prefer the niacinamide to the Power Grip, as well as the Jelly Pop. There was a point in time where I wasn't sold on these primers, but then I really missed them in my collection, and that could just be because my preferences really have changed, and having a gripping primer is really important to me. But both of those obviously staying. I have this little deluxe size of the First Aid Beauty Pores Be Gone Matte Primer. I really like this primer because it is pore filling, but yet hydrating. So I love the First Aid Beauty primers. You guys know that. I also kind of miss having my Coconut Skin Smoothing Primer in my collection. All right, next up I have the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Instant Touch Retouch Primer. My sister actually ended up giving this one to me. I really like this one as well, but I don't think that I would purchase this in the full size when I finish it, just because I have other primers that I prefer a little bit more than this one. I do feel like this does a nice job of blurring the skin. But for me, I'd rather have, if I want something that's blurring, I want something that's truly pore filling, like the Tarte Timeless Smoothing, or I want something that's going to be gripping. So I enjoy using this. I think it's a good primer, but I don't think I'd repurchase that one. This one is more of a mattifying primer. This is the Milk Pore Eclipse. My sister actually purchased this for her wedding and she ended up giving it to me, and I really liked it when I first tried it. I will say I haven't loved it as much recently, but I do just have this little deluxe size and I'd rather just use this up rather than get rid of it, because I mean, I can make this work for me. It's just not a favorite. So I wouldn't purchase that when I finish. I have the NYX Plump It Right Back Electrolytes Primer. This is a plumping serum primer. I don't necessarily feel like this is a plumping primer, but it does feel really nice and hydrating on the skin. And what's really nice about this one is it is more of like a lightweight serum-like primer. So it's really lightweight, yet still feels nice and hydrating. So I enjoy this. I don't necessarily know that I would repurchase this when I finish it. I feel like these two do kind of the same thing, and they're both around the same price point. So I guess really one or the other. They both are more of like a serum primer, so really lightweight yet feel really hydrating. I just don't know which of these two I would repurchase. I enjoyed both of them. All right, next up from One Size, I have the Secure the Glow Tacky Hydrating Primer. I do really like this primer. I do think it's a little overpriced for what it is, and that's just because if I want something that's tacky, I can go in with the e.l.f. Power Grip. Now I will say this one definitely feels a little bit more hydrating than my e.l.f. primers, but for me, I'm looking more for the tackiness from a primer than the hydration, and I can get hydration from my skincare routine, so I'd rather pay significantly less for a truly just tacky primer rather than one that's a little bit of both, but it's just more expensive. Now I'm going to enjoy using this. I do think it's a really nice primer. I just would not pay full price to purchase this again in my collection. And then the final two primers that I have the Iconic London Underglow Blurring Primer. I really like this. This does give a really nice soft blur to the skin. I don't necessarily know that I would purchase this again, however, because again, if I'm looking for a blur, I'm going for the Tarte Timeless. This one I feel like also kind of blurs in the same way that the Tula one does. However, this one has a tint to it, so I can use this more frequently to match my face when I have a self tan. Now granted, I could still mix this one with the Drunk Elephant Dewdrops. I just don't necessarily see myself purchasing this one again. And then finally, I have the Glossier Future Dew Oil Serum Hybrid. They actually sent this one to me. I have gone through a full jar of this in the past, and I like this. However, this does feel a little bit heavy and distracting on the skin. It is very, very glowy, so if you don't like a glowy primer, I wouldn't recommend this. But on days that I definitely want like more glowy skin, I think this is a really great option. I wouldn't purchase this again on my own, again, just because it's definitely not my favorite thing ever, but to have it in my collection and use it when I'm feeling like wanting really glowy skin, I do enjoy it. So these are all of the primers staying in my collection. Again, I'm keeping 12 primers in my collection and then decluttering just the one. Okay, we can move on to concealers next. We'll end with foundation because I think that's the one where I have the most amount of products currently. Okay. For my concealers, I only have 8 concealers currently in my collection, which feels really, really good. So we can start with this one. This is the NYX Bare With Me Serum Concealer. I really do like this concealer. I haven't used it a ton just because I've been focused on other things. But this one is really nice and lightweight while still offering like a nice medium coverage. So this I will keep. I will also be keeping my Tower 28 concealer. I again really like this for something that's a little bit thinner underneath the eyes. Doesn't provide the most full coverage, but just feels really nice and lightweight and hydrating underneath the eyes. So keeping that. Also keeping my Charlotte Tilbury Magic Radiant Concealer. This is my favorite concealer currently in my collection. This one is a little bit thicker, but I really like the coverage that this provides underneath my eyes. I feel like it blurs underneath my eyes, and it is definitely a fave. Okay, here's where it gets a little bit interesting because I am definitely not the best at picking the correct shades out for myself. So I feel like these last, well, I'm gonna keep the NYX Born to Glow. I'm almost through this concealer, and that one works just fine. But these four, I definitely, well, I will say, so I was saying in my chopping block that I was likely going to declutter the LYS because I felt like this one was not the correct shade for me. However, when I watched the footage of my chopping block video, I actually liked this shade. It definitely was more of my true like skin tone rather than being a little bit lighter underneath the eyes, but I actually thought it was flattering and I love this formula, so I am gonna keep the LYS. Now, I think I am going to declutter this one from Fenty. This is just too light for me, and because I don't find this to be the most hydrating concealer, I feel like I should take my watch off for the swatching that's gonna happen. Because I feel like this concealer specifically can really emphasize some dryness. Having it be this light color just really doesn't work for me. This is the We're Even concealer. I actually purchased this year, and this is something that I will likely include in my worst of 2023. I just have not enjoyed this concealer, so I am going to declutter this. Next, I have my Rose Ink concealer, and this is another one where this one kind of leans on the opposite end of the spectrum though. It's just not the correct shade for me. There it is swatched right there. I am really self-tanned. I just self-tanned yesterday. But this is a little bit darker and almost has too much of like a peachy undertone to it. There's something about this that just doesn't work. I used to really enjoy this concealer, and I'm honestly sitting here being like, oh, what was happening on my face when I was using this concealer? However, this is going in my Rolling Project 10 pan, and I have been using this. I have actually been mixing the two of these concealers together, but I'm really just thinking to myself, I'd rather, like, I think my sister could use the Natasha Denona and really like it. This one is just way too light for me. I'll swatch this one. Like, it's way too light. I do really enjoy the Natasha Denona, and I do plan to pick this up in a better shade for me at some point. But I'd like to pass this one along to my sister, who I think can get more use out of it. And then I would just so much rather use any of these other concealers. And I really just am feeling, as I'm growing older, it does not make sense for me to make a product work for me, especially when I have a makeup collection that's so large that I have products in my collection that do work for me without having to kind of finesse the formula. And I have products in my collection in each category that I really do love and enjoy. So I actually am going to be decluttering the Rose Ink concealer as well, meaning that we are keeping 5 concealers and we are going to be decluttering 3. Okay, I'm gonna break my powders up by loose powder and pressed powder. So here are my loose powders, and we already know I'm gonna be keeping my Givenchy Prism Libre powder. This is in the shade Viola Rosé. I absolutely love this, and I will repurchase this, likely in a full size, just because this is my #1 loose powder. Right now, I just like a loose powder for underneath the eyes, although this does work all over the face. And for me, I feel like this powder really just is it. Sorry, my air came on, so I turned it off. This powder just really is it. It works for me. It works so well. I really enjoy it, and I don't get super excited to try new powders. So honestly, I'd be okay if this was even just my only loose powder in my collection, because I feel like I always want to reach for this powder, but then I feel guilty only reaching for this powder, so then I'm trying to make myself reach for other things. But this is definitely staying, and I am going to keep my Huda Beauty Cherry Blossom Cake. I did purchase this year. I kind of wish I had purchased just the mini. I don't know if maybe the mini wasn't available at the time that I purchased this. I still have so much of this left. These are going to be the 2 that I keep, and I am going to declutter the e.l.f. Halo Glow setting powder as well as the Nabla baking setting powder. I just really love this one. This one I don't love quite as much, but I would like to keep this one because I can make this one work for me in a way that I still like and enjoy. Whereas these 2 I don't like quite as much, and I don't want to overwhelm myself with powders when, again, I just always want to be reaching for this one. I will purchase this one again in the full size during this next Sephora VIB sale. And then I'll just have these 2, and will eventually work my way through this one to be comfortable just with the 1 powder. So those 2 are going, the e.l.f. Halo Glow as well as the Nabla baking and setting, I will be decluttering. All right, so then I have 8 pressed powders, and I definitely have been preferring a pressed powder. I like a pressed powder to set all over my face, but I do have generally dry skin, so things can get a little interesting. Right off the bat, I know I'm keeping my Kosas Cloud Set powder. I recently purchased this again because I was missing this in my collection. This is one of my favorite pressed powders for all over the face. It is a baked formula. It's really nice and lightweight. I feel like it sets my face while not making my face look super heavy. So this one's definitely staying. My Flower Beauty one, I don't know if I don't remember if I decluttered this at the end of last year and then recluttered it, or if I was thinking about it, but I am going to declutter this one. I used to really love this powder. In fact, I feel like I've gone through a full size of this. This is really similar to the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter powder, but I have just found that I feel like this has been looking a little bit heavier on my skin, and I do not love it like I used to. I much prefer, even like my Bare Minerals Bare Pro powder, I like better on my face. Obviously, I like the Kosas on my face. I like the CoverGirl Clean Fresh. And I just don't need to overwhelm myself with a ton of powders. Powder is not an area of my collection, again, that I get super excited about. I don't really care if I have a ton of options in the powder category, so I'm gonna pass this one along. Next up, I have the Fenty Beauty Powder Foundation, which I have a huge pan in. I do plan to finish this year, so hoping to move this out of my makeup inventory by the end of the year. I am obviously going to keep it. It's not something that I personally would repurchase when I finish, but I do enjoy using it. I'm also going to keep both of my Bare Minerals Bare Pro powders. I have the shade Light 22 Cool. I really enjoy this powder. I use it to set all over my face. I know it is a powder foundation, but if I'm using like a tinted moisturizer, I do like to set my face with this for a little bit more coverage. I liked this little sample so much that I went on to purchase a full size in a shade that I feel like works better for me all year round. This one is the shade Fair 15 Neutral. Again, this is really smooth on the face, and I just like the coverage that this gives, so that will be staying. Okay, I have my Lawless Perfecting Powder in the shade Light. I think I purchased this around this time last year. This is fine, but I do find this powder to be a little bit heavier than I typically prefer or am looking for in a powder. And again, I have the Kosas, which I really love, the Bare Minerals. I said I liked the CoverGirl. So I'm like, I just don't feel like I need all of these powder options. I would much rather reach for those over this one. And so I just don't feel the need to keep this in my collection, and I am going to pass along the Lawless powder. You guys have already heard me say I like the CoverGirl Clean Fresh powder. I actually broke my previous one of this and missed this powder so much in my collection that I repurchased. So I do really enjoy this powder. I like this powder because it sets all over the face, but I feel like it doesn't totally mattify the face, so it doesn't totally take the life out of a face. And I just enjoy this one. This is one that I would repurchase when I finish this as well. And then finally, I have the Huda Beauty Easy Bacon Snatch powder, which I purchased during the November 2023 Sephora sale. I don't know, I was just into trying new powders last year, I guess. I don't like this. I thought that this was going to be kind of like a finishing powder, similar to like an Hourglass Ambient Lighting powder, but this gets hard pan really easily. I don't feel like this looks flattering on my face, and even though it's not even a year old in my collection, I'm gonna pass this along to someone else. It doesn't work for me, I don't love it, and therefore I don't need to keep it in my collection. So that means for my pressed powders, I will be decluttering 3 and keeping 5. So total for my powder collection, we're decluttering 5 and keeping 7. I actually feel really good about that. We have a lot of foundations. We have so much going on here. So I'm gonna start with I should have set this out like tinted moisturizers and foundations, but we can start with tinted moisturizers, and we'll start with ones that I know I'm keeping. So I'm obviously going to be keeping my Supergoop Protect Tint Daily SPF. I purchased these during the most recent Sephora VIB sale. I loved this formula so much that I purchased a deeper shade to match me in the summertime. This is my favorite current tinted moisturizer. I love that it has SPF 50, and I just feel like it looks really beautiful on the skin. So I'm definitely keeping both of those. And then, okay, let's go along. So the Tinted Hydrator, I'll call this a Tinted Moisturizer. We can do that. This is from Wet n Wild. I actually really like this. I feel like this offers like a good light coverage and wears off really gracefully. Has pretty good wear time, especially for being a drugstore foundation at such a low cost. I do really enjoy this one, and I am gonna keep that. The NARS Pure Radiant Tinted Moisturizer, I am going to be decluttering. This is just way too light for me. I had been keeping this around to mix with other foundations, but I do have a white foundation mixer, and for me it just doesn't make sense for me to keep, there's a couple of foundations that I've been keeping around that just are not a good shade match for me. And I'm just getting to the point where, again, I don't want to take the time to really finesse a formula to make it work for me when I have so many other options in my collection that I really enjoy reaching for and really like using. So for that reason, I'm going to be decluttering the NARS Pure Radiant. I'm also, okay, hear me out on this one. I'm going to be decluttering the Arborian CC Cream. I have the shade Claire. I love this formula, love this product, but this shade is just not my correct shade. It looks awful on me, and I would rather just purchase this in my correct shade, which I believe is Door. Door definitely matches me way better than the shade Claire. Claire is just too fair, but also kind of like pulls like this orangey fair shade. It just does not work for me, and I've been feeling guilty for not reaching for this, but the reason I'm not reaching for it is because it's such an awful shade for me. So I'm gonna be decluttering that. This one up here, the Noblest Skin Realist, is like a tinted beauty balm. This used to be an absolute favorite of mine, and I haven't been reaching for it that frequently. I did put this on my skin again last night, just knowing I was going to be filming this today, and I really wanted to kind of regain my thoughts on this. And I put it on and I was like, why haven't I been reaching for this? This looks so beautiful. I really enjoy this. So I'm gonna keep this, and I'm going to pull this into a Shop My Stash and get some use out of it before the summer's over. Here I also have my Huda Beauty Glowish Multi-Dew Skin Tint. This is definitely a deeper shade for me. Definitely only works for me in the summer when I have a self-tan, but I do think this is a really beautiful formula if you like something that's a little bit glowier. Would I purchase this again when I finish? No, because I really enjoyed the Supergoop Protect tint, but I would like to actually get use out of this and use this up rather than pass this one along or, you know, let it go bad. But again, wouldn't purchase that again. Okay, the IT Cosmetics CC Nude Glow I'm going to keep. I do really like the IT Cosmetics CC cream. I've gone through multiple jars and multiple different formulations. I think the Nude Glow is my personal favorite. Again, you're gonna have to like a glow, but I prefer this to the glow that comes in the pink bottle, and I've gone through two of the pink ones. So clearly I do enjoy this. This has SPF 40. It definitely has coverage. Like, it's not gonna be like a tinted balm. It definitely has coverage, but I enjoy using this one. Then I have the Tula Radiant Skin with SPF 30. This is more of just like a tinted SPF, but this is really beautiful on the skin. Again, it says Radiant Skin. It is glowier, but I think it's really beautiful, especially for this time of year. I actually do really like the shade that I have. I have the shade 8, and it works really well for me in the summertime, so I will keep this. Next up, I have the YSL New, the Bare Look Tint, and this is one of those products that I really like the formula. It's YSL. I've been trying to make it work for me, but the shade, it's just, watch, now that I had self-tan last night, I'll look, I don't know, there's something just about the shade that just is like too, there's something that's just too warm or too orangey about this one that I just personally don't love on my skin. Even when I have a self-tan, I know I'm like looking now and I'm like, okay, yesterday when I didn't have the self-tan, it was significantly worse. But I also don't want to keep a product in my collection that I really can only use on day 1 or 2 of having a self-tan. I just feel like I've really been trying to make this one work for me too much, and I have other products I'd rather be reaching for. And I think it pains me because some of these products, like, I really did love at one point in time. But it's okay for our preferences to change. I've been getting older, my skin has changed, and it's okay for me to not love something that maybe I used to love. It doesn't mean I didn't love it at one point, but for me, I'm ready to pass this one along. All right, next up I have the Juvia's, actually this is more of a foundation, so we're gonna come back to that. Let's see, what else do we have that is, okay, here we go. We have the Fenty Beauty Tint, the Eavesdrop Blurring Skin Tint. I have been through a real love-hate relationship with this product. I did not like this at all when I first purchased it. Then I was really enjoying it, and lately I just have not been enjoying this again, and I think it is just because my skin is more dry, and this is definitely one of those products that if you have dry skin, personally I find that it really does cling to dry patches. It really does take a lot of skin prep for me for this to look good, and I just don't feel like it's personally worth that effort when I have other skin tints that don't take the effort that this one does. I'm just noticing now. I wore a glove yesterday when I self-tanned, but anyway, I am gonna pass this one along. I feel like there's still like half this product left in here. I have a friend that could definitely get some use out of this and enjoy it more than I do, so I'm gonna pass this one along. And then I'm gonna count this as kind of like a skin tint tinted moisturizer sort of situation. This is the L'Oreal True Match Nude. If you watched my chopping block try on, I actually said I was gonna keep this. Watching back the footage though, I was like, I do not like the undertone of this. It almost has too much of like a grayish undertone, and I'd rather wear a foundation that's a little bit more flattering on my skin. So I'm going to be passing this one along as well. Okay. Those were kind of all the skin tinty sort of, well, whatever, who cares? We're just gonna keep on going. We're gonna keep on going. Okay, the Sephora spray foundation, not keeping. This is not good. I feel like people used to compare this to the spray Dior foundation, and if it's comparable, then I'm glad I never spent over $60 on the Dior one. But also, I'm wondering if they're just comparing it because they're both sprays. This may have been old because I purchased this when it was mega on sale, but this is awful. So that is getting the boot. Bare Minerals sent over a couple of their Bare Pro 24-hour wear foundations earlier this year, and I'm so appreciative that they sent this over and I could test this out. But this formula is way too mattifying for my skin personally. If you have oily skin, I think you would really love this foundation, but this definitely does not work for me and my dry skin, so I am going to be decluttering both of those. Next up, I have my NYX Born to Glow Naturally Radiant Foundation. I will be keeping this. I do really love this product. I don't believe you can get this anymore. This is going in a project and I am trying to finish this before the end of the year. It's a beautiful, glowy, kind of medium coverage formula, really similar to the Armani Beauty, oh my gosh, one of the Armani Beauty foundations. Anyway, keeping that. I'm gonna move these down. Okay, I am gonna keep my Lancome Tentidol Ultra Wear Care and Glow. I like this. This definitely isn't as glowy as I was expecting, but it is ultra long wearing, which I really appreciate, especially in the summertime. I definitely picked up my summer shade, and if I want my makeup to last all day, perhaps I'm doing, you know, all day patio drinking, which is extremely rare, especially as I've aged. I just don't have that in me anymore. But, or if I was doing an event in the summer, again, I don't do a lot of, anyway, very long wearing, and I do really like that one. I'm also going to be keeping both of my L'Oreal True Match Nude foundations. This is a really beautiful formula. You can get it at the drugstore. I know that drugstore prices are going up, but it's obviously less expensive than like my Dior foundations, and I think this is a very, very beautiful formula. Definitely something I would purchase again when I finish, and I really like that formula. I am going to keep my Tarte Shape Tape Cloud Coverage foundation. This isn't my favorite foundation of all time, but I can make it work and it is pretty. And I know I just said I don't want to like keep things that I can make work. It's not like I have to mix this with other things to make it work. It's just not my absolute favorite, but this is one that I did spend the money on it and I do still like it from time to time. It's just not something I would purchase again when I finish. So keeping that. I am, however, going to declutter my Juvia's Place I Am Magic Radiant Foundation. This is just a little bit heavy on the skin, a little bit too mattifying for me with my dry skin, and just isn't the most flattering foundation in my collection. I thought about keeping this around to mix with other foundations, but again, I have a white mixer. I also feel like this True Match, if I want something light, I can mix this into other foundations that maybe are a little bit too dark. And I just don't want to keep this around because I'm mixing it with things. I would never wear this foundation on its own. I don't think it's flattering on its own. So I'm going to declutter that. I am also going to declutter my Makeup Forever HD Skin foundation. I was keeping this around because it's definitely a foundation that works really well for like a long wear day. Maybe I have a visit at work. I know it's going to be a long day. I want my makeup to last a long time. Like I said, I can reach for the Chanel for that. I can reach for my Dior foundations, my Guerlain. This just isn't the most flattering long wear foundation on my dry skin, so I'd rather reach for other things, and I usually do reach for other things. So it doesn't make sense for me to keep that in my foundation collection. I'll be decluttering that. I will be keeping my Laura Mercier Real Flawless Weightless Perfecting Foundation. I think this is absolutely beautiful. I have gone through a love-hate relationship with this as well. I did not like this when I first started using this. I don't really know what changed, but I quickly became obsessed with this at the beginning of this year, and it's been a little bit since I pulled this out, but I definitely want to again because I really, really enjoy this foundation. I think it's beautiful. I will also be keeping my Fenty Beauty Eavesdrop Blur Smooth Stick Tint. Recently rolled this into a project. My goal is to finish this year. I'm certain I can do that. Like, I'm certain I can. This is just a really easy foundation to travel with. If I'm going to like my mom's for a couple days, it's really easy to take with me, and it's very easy to apply, to blend out, and just looks really nice and lightweight and naturally beautiful on the skin. So we'll keep that, and I'm sure I will move this out of my collection before the end of the year. So not really worried about that even counting at my end of year makeup inventory numbers. Okay, then we just have these left. My Dior Forever Natural Nude Foundation. I purchased this year because it was one of the last remaining Dior foundations that I had yet to try. I love Dior foundations. I thought Natural Nude would be perfect for me because I like more of a natural skin-like finish. This, however, just reads so dry on my skin, and I keep trying it and keep trying it because I keep thinking to myself, this is supposed to be my perfect Dior foundation, and it just isn't. So I am going to be decluttering that. I will, however, be keeping my Dior Forever Skin Glow. I absolutely love this foundation. I love the Dior Forever as well as the Skin Glow. Dior does make a really beautiful foundation. Unfortunately, this just wasn't one of them for me, but I love the Skin Glow, so that one we'll be keeping. I've gone through multiple jars of that. I also recently talked about how the Very Valentino foundation is one of my favorite products that I've tried thus far this year, so I obviously will be keeping this. This is a really beautiful natural kind of like satin matte finish. It definitely does dry down, but it doesn't look super dry on the skin, and it does have a very long wear time to it, so I really enjoy this one. Also keeping my Haus Labs Triclone Skin Tech Foundation. I purchased this year, and I've really been enjoying this. This kind of reminds me of the Laura Mercier Real Flawless. Both are very, very lightweight, kind of serum-like foundations that don't feel heavy on the skin, but do provide a good amount of coverage. So keeping that. I'm also gonna keep my Clinique Even Better Clinical Serum Foundation. I love this. This provides really good coverage, has a really good wear time to it, but is a serum-like foundation. Like, it is very, very thin on the skin. Only problem with this is I definitely, unless it's like day one of my self-tan, I do need to mix this with something that's a little bit lighter, but I still like the formula enough to do that. So this one will be staying. I am going to get rid of my other Merit Beauty Stick Foundation. I feel like I've talked about this in teas that I would be decluttering this. I panned my other Merit Stick Foundation earlier this year, and I just don't love the way that this one sits on my skin. I feel like it ages me. I feel like it looks heavy on my skin, and for me, it's just not worth keeping around in my collection. So this one I will be decluttering. We know I'm keeping my Guerlain Healthy, what is this? The Healthy Glow Natural Perfection Foundation. One of my favorite foundations, if not my favorite foundation. I think this one even tops my Dior foundations. It's so beautiful. It sets down. It's kind of, again, like a satin matte finish that just lasts all day but still looks like healthy skin, and I absolutely love this foundation. 100% will repurchase when I finish this. I'm kind of annoyed that I waited so long to buy this, but I'm so glad I did finally bite the bullet and buy this because, like I said, it has become my favorite foundation in my collection. And then finally, I am going to keep my Oma Beauty by Sharon C Flawless in Real Life Skin Perfecting Foundation. This is a really beautiful long wear foundation if I'm wanting something that's a little bit more mattifying, but this one is, again, really thin on the skin, so it doesn't feel really heavy. And although it is mattifying, I don't feel like this clings to my dry patches or makes me look like a corpse. So I will be keeping this. Again, my only gripe with this one is I bought a shade that is definitely deep, and so I either need to wear it on day one of my self-tan or mix it with the white mixer, but this one will be staying. Okay, that being said, we're keeping 20 foundations, which I actually don't know if I've had only 20 foundations in my collection for a long time. Like, I think that is the best this makeup category like inventory number has been in a long time. And then I will be decluttering 11 foundations. I don't know if I've ever decluttered 11 foundations. This actually feels so good. It feels like growth that I'm able to like sit here and be like, okay, like someone else is gonna get better use out of this than me, and I'm okay actually like passing things along. So getting rid of 11, keeping 20. All right, you guys, we're gonna start with my cream bronzer collection. And I will be honest, I think bronzer is going to be a very difficult category for me to declutter from, just knowing myself and knowing how much I love bronzers. I can start with this one though. I know this is an easy one. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Contour Wand. Used to really love this. This one personally I feel like smells like paint thinner now, and I don't love this formula or this shade as much as I once did. So for that reason, I am going to declutter this. I know, oh my gosh, this is so difficult. This is so difficult. I know I'm gonna keep, here, maybe I should start, I'm gonna swatch these two. I know I'm gonna keep my Chanel Le Beige bronzer, and I did just self tan last night, so some of these like you can barely see that one on my skin here, but I feel like that's like the perfect type of bronzer to have. Not too dark, not too orangey, very neutral. This is a beautiful cream bronzer, and always I feel like my face is a little bit lighter than my actual skin, so this, I'm keeping this. Don't judge this. My daughter kind of destroyed this, but it's so expensive. I don't want to buy a new one, and it still works just fine. This is my Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Sun-Kissed Bronzer. Now this one is a little bit deeper. If you're hearing noises that sound like squeaks, my daughter's sitting watching a YouTube video on my big sloth next to me, and she keeps moving and it's making noise. Okay, that is what that one looks like. It is definitely a little bit deeper, but I still think that this is beautiful. I love this one. I should focus on this in a project because this looks so janky. I really should try and get use out of this, but I am going to keep that one. And then I am also going to keep my Fenty Beauty Butter Biscuit. Let's go ahead and swatch this one. This one is definitely a little bit lighter. I'm like lighter than the Charlotte Tilbury, and possibly even a little bit lighter in tone than the Charlotte Tilbury, although kind of similar to the Charlotte Tilbury. I love this one. I feel like this really works for me all year round, but especially when I don't have a self tan, this is really beautiful, so I will keep that. Okay, I would really like to keep my NARS Laguna bronzer as well. This one I feel like is really deep though. Yeah, that one is deep, so I have to be really careful with this one. You can really sheer this one out though, kind of. I just have to be careful and go in with a really light hand, but I do really enjoy this formula. I think it's a beautiful product, and when I have something that's a little bit more full coverage, I like to reach for this as well. So I'm gonna keep my NARS Laguna bronzer. Let's look at, well, let's actually swatch both of my Rare Beauty. So I have the shade Happy Soul, which is the one that I've gotten more use out of. I'm purchased Happy Soul. There's Happy Soul swatched. And then the other one I have is Bright Side. My sister gave me Bright Side. Bright Side looks pretty similar to Butter Biscuit. So it's like, do I need both? I might, oh, that's so tough, because this one's so easy to use and to travel with. But I don't find myself reaching for this one all that frequently. I'm gonna swatch Butter Biscuit. I'm gonna do like a heavier swatch to see really how similar those are. This one is almost even a little bit more deep, but they are so similar. They really are so similar. I feel like I don't need to keep both, and I am gonna keep Bright Side, Happy Soul. I'm gonna keep Happy Soul. I'm gonna keep Butter Biscuit, so maybe I will declutter Bright Side and pass this along to a friend, just because I feel like they're similar enough, not quite so similar, but this is also a little bit more cool toned. Oh, I don't need both. I'm gonna declutter this one. I'm gonna declutter that. All right, let's move on to the my Patrick Ta, and I'm gonna swatch just the contour portion of this. Ooh, the contour portion is very light. I want to swatch that against maybe it's not as light as I thought. Also pretty similar to Bright Side and Butter Biscuit. I do really enjoy this product for when I am more fair though.
And I'm gonna hang on to this and swatch the powder side with the powders, but I do believe I will keep that. All right, next up I have my Huda Beauty Tan Tour. I do have a pan in this, but I haven't reached, oh. Okay, that one still smells normal. I haven't reached for this one in a bit. Okay, I feel like this isn't working to swatch over my tattoos as well. Okay, I don't feel like I have anything quite this shade. And I do like this one. This one also is more pigmented. So when I am, again, like maybe doing more full coverage makeup and I want a cream product, but it's gonna offer a little bit more pigmentation. Also, it definitely is leaning on the more cool tone side because obviously it is a contour product. I'm gonna keep this. I feel like if I declutter this, I would be decluttering just to declutter something. So I don't wanna do that. I'm gonna be keeping that. Next up, we have my Makeup by Mario. I love this product. This is the Soft Sculpt Transforming Skin Enhancer in the shade Light Medium. Let's see, where can I swatch? I feel like I should take my swatches off. Ooh, that's actually pretty similar to a little bit glowier. And obviously I really sheared this one out, but kind of similar in tone, kind of, to the NARS. I'm definitely keeping this. I'm just trying to see kind of like what it's similar to. I love this product, so definitely keeping that. And then finally I have my Rose Ink bronzer, which I like this, but I've mentioned many times these Rose Ink products like definitely dry out more quickly. Yeah, like even like this whole top layer, I feel like I really have to, like the whole top layer is dried out, so I really have to do a lot of swirling. Okay, let's see. I feel like I don't want to keep this just because it does keep drying out. And I'm like, I'd rather, like, what is this similar to? It definitely is more warm leaning, actually. I feel like it might be most similar to the NARS. Okay, I'm gonna swatch these two next to one another. Let's see. There's the NARS, but then we can shear the NARS out. And then here is the Rose Ink. Okay, the Rose, it's so hard because the Rose Ink one really is really pretty. But it's just annoying that it like dries out so quickly. But it definitely has a bit of a warmer undertone. I thought I was going to declutter this. Oh, why am I struggling so much with this one? I think I do want to keep both. I just like that that one's just a little bit warmer. And after I like warm the product up, it works just fine. So I'm gonna keep both of these. Again, I don't want to declutter just to declutter. We'll see if I use this more, and if I'm not using this at all this summer. Now I'm looking at it, I'm like, is it too warm toned? Okay, I'm gonna put this on my face really quick. Okay, I just put this one on my face, and I actually do feel like on my face it does look a little more orangey and warm tone than I would prefer. Like, I'd rather just reach for the NARS if I'm trying to decide between the two of these, because this one leans a little bit more neutral. So I will declutter the Rose Ink. I really did like this at one point in time, but it is frustrating that this dries out so quickly. I also noticed that all of the Rose Ink products are, or were at least, on sale for 50% off on the Sephora website. So I don't know if something is happening there, but I am going to declutter that. And that just leads me to these three cloud paints that I have left from Glossier. Let me clear off this swatch. This will be interesting. So I think I'm for sure going to declutter Sale. This one is just really light. And I just don't see myself getting use out of this one. Glossier did send over all four, and I did give one of them to my sister. There, that is swatched right there. Definitely more like, I just feel like once this is blended out, it's basically like blends out into something that like really isn't even gonna translate as a bronzer on my personal skin tone, unless I'm like truly at my fairest. But I am someone who likes bronzer. I like to like be able to see my bronzer. That's just my personal preference. I know it's not the same for everyone, but I feel like someone else, possibly even my sister, could also benefit from this or get more use out of this than I would. So I'm gonna pass Sale along. Then I have the shade Dune and the shade Coast. Now Coast is way too deep for me, but I have mixed Coast with a lotion to kind of use as like a body blur bronzing product, and I did like it that way, but I just also purchased the browning lotion from Vacation, which like does the same thing, and I don't have to like mix the two together, and it's a little bit finicky to do that. I do really like the shade Dune. I do really like the shade Dune, which is swatched out right here. As you can tell, as this is blended out, it definitely does match my self tan pretty well, almost to the point where like you can't see this, but on my face I feel like you really could. I think I'm gonna pass Coast along just because I don't see myself using this other than mixing it possibly with a lotion, and I can just use the Vacation browning lotion for that. But I will keep Dune in my collection. And so that means for the cream slash liquid bronzer category, we are keeping 8, decluttering 5. I actually feel good about that. Okay, as I was pulling my bronzers out, I realized I missed my Merit bronzing stick in the shade Clay, so I thought I'd just swatch that out for you guys right there. I will be keeping Merit, so I guess we are keeping 9, decluttering 5. The Merit is so beautiful. This is like truly like your skin beautiful bronze. It is like glowier, but it is glowier, but it is more subtle, and you can really sheer this one out. You can build it up some, not to like a ton of opacity, but some, or you can really sheer it out. And I just feel like this is like the most beautiful like bronzer, no bronzer sort of bronzer. So definitely keeping this one from Merit. Here are my powder bronzers. It actually feels like I don't have that much bronzer right now. I do have my face palettes that have bronzer in them pulled right now, just in case I'm like on the fence about something and I want to swatch something similar. I'm gonna start with this one from Patrick Ta. I'm gonna start with my bronzers that are a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna swatch the powder version. Okay, that powder version is like extremely light. I'm like, do I actually not need, this is in the shade She's Statuesque. Let me swatch Fenty Into Sun next to that. Okay, Fenty in the Sun is definitely like a creamier, smoother formula and just a little bit deeper. I actually think I'm going to declutter the Patrick Ta Face Duo. I just feel like in terms of the cream formula, I have other creams similar to it, and I would much rather reach for Fenty Beauty Into Sun over the powder from this. And Fenty Into Sun for a lighter bronzer is definitely something when I finish this I would repurchase. So this one will stay, but I'm actually kind of surprised. I'm going to declutter the Patrick Ta Duo. Oh, I just realized I missed 2 bronzers. That could be why it feels like I don't have that much bronzer. Okay. Another lighter bronzer in my collection is this one from Nabla. I absolutely love this. This is in the shade Ambra. This is a baked formula. It offers a really beautiful glow, but as you can tell, it is definitely a little bit lighter. I absolutely love this. This has taken me forever. Like, I have focused on this in multiple projects. I've used this so much. This was definitely my favorite bronzer when I first purchased this, and it's still going strong. Like, I still don't even see a pan. I do believe I would repurchase this bronzer after finishing this. I love this for a bronzer that's not totally matte. So keeping this and would repurchase when I finish. And then kind of in that same vein, okay, let's do this, because this is okay, this is the NYX Buttermelt bronzer in the shade Deserve Butter, which has a little bit more of like a pinkiness or a cool toned vibe. So there's that swatch there. Definitely a little bit deeper though with that pink undertone. I am going to keep this. I've really been enjoying the NYX Buttermelt bronzer, so that will be staying. Let me swatch, let's swatch the Gucci bronzer. This is in the shade 1. This is obviously lighter and also is supposed to have kind of like a pinky undertone. So there is Gucci shade 1. I'm actually curious how Gucci 1 compares to Fenty Into Sun. Oh, I don't know how well you can see that, but the Gucci No. 1 bronzer almost looks even a little bit lighter than Fenty Into Sun, with a little bit more of like a pinkiness to it. I'm definitely keeping Gucci No. 1 as well. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful bronzer, especially when I am more fair. Just realized I missed yet another bronzer. And actually this bronzer is a little bit lighter as well. So this is NARS Laguna, but it's the sun washed version. There's NARS Laguna. I actually want to swatch that against Fenty into Sun. Okay, that one's a little bit deeper. I do have this new palette from NARS. This is their Laguna Ultimate Face Palette, and it comes with Laguna Original and then Drift Away. I'm just very curious how the original Laguna swatches. Oh, that is so interesting. I was expecting this original Laguna, which is swatched right here, to be way deeper than the sun-washed version. Maybe not though. Okay. My question to myself is, do I need both? I will say this original one almost looks a little bit glowier than this one. I feel like I would be decluttering this just to declutter it if I did. Like, I think that looks so beautiful on the skin. So I am gonna keep the sun-washed Laguna. Let me swatch. This is one that I'm like big question marks. So this is my Marc Jacobs Tantastic. There it is swatched right there. That really is beautiful because it's just, really is subtle. I just feel like I've had this in my collection for so long, I'm kind of just over it. But also I really have no reason to be, so I'm gonna keep this. I do have a large pan in it. It would be so satisfying to someday just finish this pan. I would likely keep the compact. It's a nice large compact, so that will be staying. Should we move on to my glowy bronzers next? Okay, so for my glowy bronzers, we have my Kosas The Beachy Sun Show, which I am going to declutter. Mine smells like it's gone off, and I just kind of wish I never had even purchased that. Plus that's like very bronzy. Granted, that is a heavy swatch, but that's just like not my personal preference for bronzer. So I am going to declutter that. And then I have my Huda Glowish, and if you saw my chopping block try on, I did try this on. I thought I really liked it, but then watching back and reading some of your comments, a lot of you said that this was a little bit warm on me, kind of pulled a little bit orangey, and I do agree. I didn't love it as much when I watched back the footage, so I actually am ready to pass on my Huda Glowish as well. If I want to add a little bit of glow to my bronzer, Nabla Ambra is where it's at. I can just use this to kind of top my bronzer. I don't really think I have any more glowy bronzers. Maybe let's swatch. Here is my Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Bronzer in the shade 2. There is that one swatched. That honestly like swatched lighter than I was expecting. I really love this. I obviously have a huge pan in this, so I'm gonna keep that. And I wanna swatch that against, let's see, the Hoola bronzer, which I repurchased the Benefit Hoola bronzer this year, because I missed having this in my collection. And actually the Hoola is kind of similar to the Charlotte Tilbury. I feel like this one almost has a little bit more of like a pinkiness to it, not by a lot, but is also just a little bit deeper. I am gonna keep Hoola as well. And then let me swatch my Dior Forever Natural Bronze next. This is in the shade 4, Tan Bronze. And this, I feel like in the pan this one looks really deep, but then swatched you can see it's actually not that deep, and almost, so this definitely has more of like a cool toned undertone. I do actually really like this when I am more fair, which again kind of seems counterintuitive to Tan Bronze, but definitely pulls a little bit more pink. I am going to keep this one. All right, these last few, let's see. All right, we have my Give Beauty, and I forgot this also has a cream in it as well, but I love the powder in this. It definitely is a little bit deeper, a little bit more warm toned, but I don't know, there is something about this duo that I really love. If I didn't say, it's in the shade Tosin. And then let's swatch it next to the Gucci bronzer. This is shade 3. Oh yeah, this is a deep shade. This is definitely probably too dark for me, but I am gonna keep this. See, I can like sheer it out. I just have to use a really fluffy brush. And I do really like the like limited edition packaging. I spent a lot of money on this, so I'm gonna try and make this one work for me. I feel like I can make this work. I just need to like really sheer that one out. I am keeping the Give Beauty duo as well. And then I have the Victoria Beckham bronzing brick. This is in the shade 3. The warm side is Sand and the contour side is Soul. So let's swatch the warm side. And that definitely is warm and a little bit deeper, something that definitely works better for me. in the summer. And then there is the contour side, which is a really, really beautiful cool toned yet deeper. I did purchase this specifically in shade 3 to match me more in the summertime. I really, really love this bronzing brick. I like to mix the two shades together. Sometimes I just go in with the warm side, sometimes I just go in with the cool side, but I am going to be keeping this. I do really enjoy that. And that just leaves me with the Vive Bronzing Duo. I have the shade, it's medium 1 and medium 2. So here is medium 1 swatched right there. And as you can tell, that is a little bit more warm. And the last time I used this product, I just didn't love it. Like, I remember loving it when I first started using this. I'm gonna swatch. There is medium 2, and both, even though this looks a little bit deeper, I feel like that just pulls more warm. There is something about the warmth in this that I just don't feel like matches my undertone well, at least anymore. So I am ready to pass this one along. So I know we didn't do as well in the powder bronzer category. I do love my bronzers, but we will be decluttering 4 powder bronzers, and then we are keeping 12 powder bronzers. Honestly, that feels way more manageable than my bronzer collection has been in the past. We jump into highlights. I realized I missed one other cream bronzer that I will be keeping, and that is my Milk Makeup Bronzing Stick in the shade Baked. Okay, we can start with my cream slash liquid highlight collection. I feel like this collection is like out of control simply because I feel like these are the like cream and liquid products I personally reach for the least. So this is my current collection. This Say Glow Sculpt in Pink Glow. I don't know, some people might consider this to be like a blush, but I consider it to be a highlight. So let's actually start with champagne highlights, because I feel like that hopefully will be easier for me simply because I prefer a pink highlight. So I feel like my pink highlight decisions are going to be a little bit more difficult. So we can start with the Flower Day Glow highlight, and I feel like I almost decluttered this in the past, but did decide to keep this. And I do think that this is a really, really beautiful formula, especially if you want something that's like a little bit more wet looking, because you can really sheer this out to be just like that wet sort of finish. So I will be keeping this. And then speaking of wet finish, I have this from Westman Atelier. This is the Lit Up Stick in the shade Parla. I will definitely be keeping this. There it is swatched right there. Again, just a really sort of wet finish. This is limited edition. I think this is absolutely beautiful. I love this to the point where I feel like I don't allow myself to use this. My other Westman Atelier stick is more of a pink tone, but I'll just swatch this one really quick right here. This one is like a bit more of a like, I don't want to say like chunkier formula, but again, kind of has that wet sort of finish. This one just has a bit of a pinkish sort of tint, but I am almost done with this one, as you can see. So I am obviously going to finish this one. I believe I'll finish this before the end of the year. If I don't, that's really sad. So I'm not concerned about this counting towards my year-end makeup inventory empties, and it was very expensive. I do like the formula, so I would like to use it. I know I'm gonna have to declutter my Flower Beauty Spotlight Liquid Highlight. This has basically dried out. Like, I can't... Oh, I guess the product comes out a little bit. It's very difficult to use though because it is dried out. So this I'm going to declutter. Then I have my Oma Beauty dual-ended stick, which I only have the contour part left on this. Oh, I thought for sure I was going to declutter that, but that is so pretty. Okay, I really should get more use out of this. Okay, I'm actually gonna keep that because I don't want to declutter just to declutter. That is so pretty. Let's look at my Trustique. This is something I've decluttered in the past and then recluttered back into my collection. I'm gonna wipe these swatches off, and I want to swatch the Trustique one next to the Oma Beauty one. Okay, interesting. This one is more golden champagne, whereas this is more of like a true stark champagne. Then I have Solar Flare from Ritual de Fille, which is... okay, all these are like so pretty. Oh, it's so hard to declutter highlights. Why? Then where's the Merit? Bounce is more pink. We have Merit Cava. Ooh, Merit Cava shows up basically like kind of like nothing. Maybe I don't need Merit Cava. I definitely want to keep Solar Flare. That is so pretty. I'm keeping Solar Flare and I'm keeping the Oma Beauty contour stick. I almost wonder if this is a little bit too stark. Ooh, I'm struggling with this one. I am really struggling with that one because it is really pretty. Okay, I'm gonna think about that one. I do think I can declutter Merit Kava. I feel like this one is similar kind of to Parla from Westman Atelier. Westman Atelier maybe is like a little bit more golden, but I feel like if I'm wanting to reach for something super subtle like this, I'd rather reach for Parla over Kava. So I'm gonna declutter Parla. And then this Trustique one, I just feel like I recluttered this and then I really liked it. But I just feel like that's maybe more intense and dry looking than I'm personally going for with a liquid highlight or a cream highlight. So I think I'm also going to re-declutter it, the Trustique cream highlight. All right, then I feel like the rest are more pink tones. So let's go with the Say Glow Sculpt. I have had like a love-hate with the Say Glow Sculpt. Oh, it's a very, very pretty pink, but it is a little bit deeper. So it is almost more of like a blush highlight hybrid. I'm gonna swatch that next to the Burt's Bees, the Luminizer, and this is in the shade Starlight. This is a really, really beautiful cream highlight, but definitely more like cool toned and a little bit more, I don't want to say metallic, but kind of a little bit more metallic than the Say Beauty. Then I'm gonna swatch Bounce from Merit. Oh yeah, the Merit highlights like really read as almost nothing. Definitely more subtle. I haven't made my mind up about any of these, if you couldn't tell. Then from Rose Inc, I have this one. This is an opalescent. This has a large pan on it, and I would like to finish this one this year. Just want to see how this one swatches next to everything. I love that. I think that's so pretty. I actually really like all of these. And actually, the one I'm like leaning most against is the Burt's Bees, because it just seems like the most intense and most metallic. I'm definitely keeping the Rose Inc. We've established that. I actually think this Kava is really pretty for a more subtle highlight. And I did declutter Kava. If I didn't say this is Bounce, I meant this is Bounce. And this definitely dries down a little bit more than the Westman Atelier. I think I am gonna keep Merit Bounce. I'm gonna keep my Say Glow Sculpt. I think that's really pretty. Oh, I really liked this one last year, but now I'm like, I don't know. All right, we have my Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk. Let's swatch that. Oh, that is really pretty too. For some reason, I thought I was going to be able to declutter Pillow Talk. Definitely not. And then I haven't swatched the second one from Ritual de Fille, which is in Moon Pillar. This is a really interesting kind of highlight. This is more of like a purple toned highlight, more ethereal. This Pillow Talk I almost feel like I would like as like a blush hybrid as well, because it is a little bit deeper. I'm going to declutter Moon Pillar just because I don't see myself reaching for, like I would much rather reach for Solar Flare over Moon Pillar. I'm just not going to reach for this purple sort of highlight. I thought maybe I would, but I'm not. So I'm going to declutter that. We're going to keep Pillow Talk, and I'm struggling with Burt's Bees because I did really like this one a lot last year. But it just is pulling so metallic right now, and it could be because I have a self tan. Like potentially when I don't, you know what, I'm gonna keep this one for right now, but this would be potentially if I don't reach for this one between now and the end of the year, I would think about decluttering this one. I will say, wow, Pillow Talk like looks so pretty there. Why have I not used this? Okay, we did not do the best with the cream highlights, and I love how I started out by saying I have a lot of cream highlights, and I feel like this is like one of my least used categories, but I am decluttering 4 cream highlights and keeping 10. All right, you guys, I have so many highlighters that this is just my powder champagne-ish highlighters. So we're gonna start here. I definitely, as I mentioned, prefer a pink highlight to a champagne. We can start with something easy. I know I'm ready to declutter the Glam Light Sugar High. I had decluttered this, then I recluttered it into my collection to see if it's something that maybe I would like, but this just is not my preference. So I will declutter that. But powder highlights, not my preference, but I think this is one of the most beautiful highlights to ever exist. This is from Artist Couture, and this is in the shade Summer Haze. I don't know like if you're able to pick up at all. That's so beautiful. It's this really wet highlight with some sparkle running throughout it, but it doesn't read like chunky glitter on the eyes, and I just think it is so pretty. So I'm definitely keeping this. Actually, let's go with ones I know I'm certain I'll keep. Okay, so we have ABH Amrezy. I love this highlight. I don't always like something this metallic, and this is definitely more of like a golden champagne, but I think this is absolutely beautiful, and it's a classic. I'm really annoyed if you're not getting like the full effect of the highlight swatches. If not, I'm so sorry, but this is definitely staying. Oh, I definitely am going to keep my REM highlight. This is in the shade Miss Mercury. This one is a little bit more subtle, but oh, and swatch there, it doesn't look that subtle, but this one really does kind of sheer out onto, like you can really sheer this one out to be so pretty. I really enjoy this one. And then I also really enjoy the Give Beauty Platinum Cowgirl highlight when I want something a little bit more subtle as well. That one is swatched out right there. I think that is so pretty. So I'm definitely keeping that. I also am definitely going to keep my Vesca Beauty highlight. This one is in the shade Moonlight. You can't get this anymore, and this is one of my favorite champagne highlights. It has this really beautiful kind of yellow gold sort of finish to it. You can sheer this one out or you can build it up. I absolutely love this highlight. It is a favorite. I'm definitely keeping that. I'm definitely gonna keep this Milk and Cookies highlight from Ofra. There's something just special about this. Not my preference at all. I'll swatch kind of all three. So you have a very stark kind of champagne, this really beautiful kind of golden sort of highlight, and then mixed together you get this. I only have, I believe this is my last remaining Ofra highlight in my collection. I don't even think I have any like deep panned ones. I don't know, I just really I like the Milk and Cookies. I really used to watch Steph Toms a lot. I don't even know if she still makes videos. I haven't watched her in a while. But for like a summer, very intense, very blinding highlight, I like to have this in my collection, so I'm gonna keep that. Oh, also kind of going back to like the more subtle side, I feel like we need to, maybe I can swatch over my tattoo. For a more subtle highlight, I love this one from Makeup by Mario. This is the Soft Glow highlighter in the shade Pearl. There's Pearl. This one is also really, really beautiful. You can really sheer Pearl out to be this really beautiful wet looking highlight. So that one is definitely going to stay. Some of these, like I'm like, am I gonna make tough choices in this, or am I just not gonna make any tough choices at all? I think I am ready to get to declutter Ray Rider from Kaleidos. I feel like I've been hanging on to this because I thought the packaging was unique and cute. There it is. Oh, that is so pretty though. Maybe I'm not. Okay, dang, that is really pretty. Definitely more intense. Let me swatch that. Oh, that is so pretty. I can't. Never mind, I can't. Okay, let's try this one. Natasha Denona Pastel Glow. This I got in my Lucky bag this year, and I just don't know that that is like a highlight I personally like. I don't know if that's my shade of highlight. So I think actually maybe I'll pass this one along to someone who would get more use out of it. Okay, next up, let's look at Milk Makeup Blitzed. I feel like I'm so close to pan on this, so I've really struggled to get myself to, oh, that is so pretty as well. Definitely a little bit deeper than I typically go for, but it's such a smooth formula. I feel like I would regret decluttering that. Okay, we're gonna keep that. Next up I have Nabla Ozone, which I do really like the Nabla formula. I think I prefer Privilege. There's Ozone swatched right there. It's really, really pretty, but is it similar? And oh, it's such a pretty formula though. And I don't want to declutter just to declutter. Ugh. What does it look like next to my Vesca? Definitely more intense. Okay, I'm gonna keep Ozone. I feel like I would be decluttering just to declutter. We're keeping it. What about Mary Lou? What about Mary Lou? I feel like my Mary Lou is definitely getting older. Okay, there's Mary Lou swatched right there. Mary Lou's kind of similar to Vesca, I feel like. All right, we have Mary Lou, and then we have the Vesca. They are similar but different. Like, am I just keeping Mary Lou around because it's Mary Lou? I don't necessarily know that I would miss Mary Luminizer in my collection. Yes, I have a pan, and that would be like, sometimes I struggle to declutter things that have a pan. But I honestly think I'm ready to declutter the Mary Luminizer. I think I can do that and feel okay about that. And then I'm curious about this one. Okay, so this is Fenty Beauty Lightning Dust and Fire Crystal, and this used to be my absolute favorite highlight. But I did end up decluttering, or sorry. It's like I would love to just, it's really just the subtle side that I love so much. Does it compare to, how does it compare to Ozone? Similar, but I almost feel like this has just like a little bit of sparkle, but okay, it's actually so similar to Ozone. So similar. Maybe a little bit more subtle. Do you guys see? I wonder if I depot. I think what I might do is depot the subtle side of this Fenty Beauty into something, but then declutter the rest. Because I feel like I force myself to try and use this. Like, I've used this as an inner corner highlight, but I have so many other inner corner highlights in my collection that I could use. And it's like a little bit more stark than I would like on the cheeks, but I love the subtle side. So I think what I'm going to do is depot the subtle side into a Z palette, or not a Z palette, a pan, so that I can use that up, but then I will declutter the rest. So I'm going to move this over to the declutter pile. Then we have my Dior Nude Luminizer. This is in the shade 1. And there is that. That is beautiful. Definitely a little bit more golden. Do I have anything similar? Like, I want to see, how does this compare to, a little bit deeper even than the Blitzed from the Flexed, which kind of surprises me. Deeper than Ray Rider. Pretty similar, very similar actually to the bronze side out of the Steph Tom's Milk and Cookie Ofra highlight. And I'd honestly rather keep Milk and Cookies. I think I am okay. I'm kind of shocking myself because it is a Dior product, but I think I'm actually going to declutter the Dior Nude Luminizer. And then the final highlight I have left is NARS Fort de France. I talk about all the time how this always is on the chopping block, then I pull it in to a Shop My Stash, and I love it. Let's see, can I just swatch it right there? It is definitely more of like, hold on, more of a yellow toned highlight. I want to swatch it next to the Vesca one. Okay, a little bit deeper than the Vesca. I know I do, like, I really like this formula. It's really like buttery, smooth, and soft, but it's a little deeper than the Vesca, and the Vesca's like my perfect shade. And I also like a pink highlight more. Am I okay finally with decluttering NARS Fort de France? It's so funny, the last time I had this pulled in my Shop My Stash, I was like definitely keeping and excited to pull it out again. I think I'm ready to declutter NARS Fort de France because I would rather reach into like Vesca or even like a mixture of Vesca and ABHM Reezy. Okay, we're doing it. NARS Fort de France is getting the boot. Okay, those were only my champagne highlights. We're only through the champagnes, meaning that we have our pinks left to go. And pink is definitely gonna be more difficult for me to let go of. I just know that I love my pink highlights so much. So we can start with Bobbi Brown Pink Glow. I absolutely adore this highlight. It is like one of my all-time favorite highlights. Just so we have a baseline of like my favorite type of pink, that is definitely staying. Let's also swatch Nabla Privilege because I do really like Nabla Privilege. That is definitely more of like a warm tone pink versus the Bobbi Brown, which is more of a cool tone pink. But I do really like both of these, so I'm gonna keep both of those. I'm also going to keep my Rare Beauty Mesmerize highlight I'll swatch that next to Bobbi Brown. Still a little bit different. This is very, very metallic on the cheeks, but I actually really enjoy this. So I will keep that. For a more subtle pink highlight, I really do like my Laura Mercier highlight in the shade Rose Glow. That is a very, very subtle pink highlight, but I think it's really, really beautiful because I feel like it just meshes so well with my skin tone. And again, on days that I just want like a little bit of a glow, but nothing too much, this is perfect. All right, then I have my Makeup Forever Profusion highlight. This is in the shade, I think it's in the shade 1. This is definitely more of a cool tone highlight. This has been in my collection forever. And this is one of the products I said will self-destruct. And I want to swatch the Bobbi Brown Pink Glow closer to this one. Like I want to compare those side by side. Okay, this is definitely more, I'm gonna say of like an ethereal glow. It's not quite as stark as the Makeup Forever. And on any given day, I would much rather reach for Bobbi Brown Pink Glow over the Makeup Forever. So I actually think I am ready to let go of the Makeup Forever highlight. We're ready to do it. That one's getting the declutter. Let's go with another warm toned highlight. So this is Fenty Beauty Girl Next Door and Chic Freak. This is one I'm like, okay, am I ready to part ways with it, but I'm struggling because it has a pan? Or do I really like it? Let's find out. So this is the side with the pan. Ooh, that's definitely more metallic than I was thinking it was. And then there is the warm tone. Oh, that warm tone is so pretty, but is it similar enough to Privilege? All right, let's swatch Privilege from Nabla next to that. Okay, they're definitely different yet similar, although this has actual like glitter chunks running throughout and is a little bit deeper. So Privilege is definitely gonna match my skin tone better. I actually think I'm ready to also declutter this one from Fenty Beauty. This is so old in my collection as well. I think we're ready to move beyond that. All right, let's swatch this one next. This is from Soul Body. This is in the shade Soft Pink. I actually recluttered this into my collection and really liked it and had been using it quite a bit. So I kept it in my collection. I wanna see how this one looks compared to my favorite Glow. Oh, this one is definitely a little bit more metallic. I feel like maybe I don't need this one because I love pink glow so much, as you guys can tell. I feel like I'm actually doing better getting rid of pink highlights than I am champagne. Okay, I'm gonna re-declutter that one. I also recluttered Charming Pink from Laura Geller into my collection. There is Charming Pink. Oh man, that is even more like stark white than I thought. And now I'm like looking, I'm like, okay, maybe I do want one that is like a little bit more stark than this, especially because I also decluttered that Makeup Forever one. And out of these two, I actually like this one better than the Laura Geller. So actually maybe I'll keep Soul Body's Soft Pink in my collection. I like that this one almost has a little bit of sparkle in it. And I'm gonna declutter Charming Pink. All right, let's swatch this one next. This is the Pixie by Petra Delicate Dew. So the pink has definitely gotten more use for me. There is Delicate Dew. That is so pretty. I love that. And then I'll also swatch the gold, which I do not get as much use out of the gold, as you can tell. It's just a little bit too deep for me, but I do really like Delicate Dew. Yeah, I like this. I like Delicate Dew enough. I'm gonna keep that. I'm like, do I need to keep this one then? Yeah, because this one's a little bit lighter. Okay, then I have my Dior. This was my first Dior highlight. This is the Dior Nude Air, and this is in the shade 2. So this is a pink, and that is so pretty. It's similar to Delicate Dew, but a little bit lighter. And now that now that I'm swatching this, I'm like, maybe I don't need, I do really like that soft pink though. I'm gonna keep soft pink, and I'm gonna keep this one. All right, that just brings me to my two What's Up Beauty highlights. So we have Safari Sunset, which is the deeper of the two, and with these, you kind of get a pink and a golden, and then obviously you can mix the two together. I'm gonna do a mixture of the two. So there's kind of the 3 laid out for that deeper one. And then, that is so pretty. I'm like, I wanna know how Privilege swatches. Okay, still a little bit different. Like I love Safari Sunset. Okay, then I have Wild Acadia, which probably would be a better match for me because it is the lighter of the two. There is the pink. There is the kind of like lighter of the two, and then I'll swirl the two together. And that's what we get swirled together. I like the pink in that one, but it is very, very stark light. Oh, how does it compare to my Nude Air? Nude Air almost has a little bit more pink in it. I know this one doesn't match me as well, but even for like this, I feel like could make a really beautiful blush topper. And I truly do reach for my Safari Sunset more than I reach for my Wild Acadia. So I'm gonna keep the What's Up Beauty. That is so pretty. Yeah, the What's Up Beauty Safari Sunset, but I'm going to declutter Wild Acadia. And so that means in the highlight category, we are decluttering 10. Okay, woohoo. Okay, this feels like I'm like actually missing some, but I'm only keeping 17 powder highlights. Like that actually feels, I'm like, am I missing some? I don't think so. Okay, only 17 powder highlights. That actually, I know that's a lot, but that actually feels so much better than where my highlight category has been at. So these are the 17 highlights. It is about to get so interesting because this is just my cream blushes. It's so crazy. I feel like I've been making progress on my blush collection, and then I was like pulling everything out for this portion of my declutter series, and I'm like, oh my absolute goodness gracious, I have so many blushes. Now granted, I have been so fortunate to get a lot of cream blush formulas in, like a lot actually, in PR. But we're gonna go through, we're gonna swatch everything. I kind of have everything laid out pretty willy-nilly just because I really want to swatch like by colors, not necessarily by brands, because I don't want to have too many repeating colors. As I hope I mentioned in the introduction, which I haven't filmed the intro for this portion of the declutter series yet, hopefully I mentioned to you that really my blush preferences these days, I love a neutral blush, something that's almost skin colored, but either warm leaning or cool leaning. And then I also really like a like peachy coral blush too. In years past, I've been so into like a sunburnt blush, which I'm kind of getting away from, but those are kind of like my blush preferences. But I do want to have like a variety of shades as well. I like to have options. So let's jump into just a couple of things just to get them like out of the way that I know I'm gonna declutter. This one from Kaja. This is in the shade Saucy. I just don't want to have something that's this bulky in my collection, especially because it's not like it's my favorite formula ever either. So this, I know I'm decluttering this. That is getting the boot. Of course my air would turn on right now. I don't know that you can hear it though. Hopefully you can't, and it usually turns off pretty quickly. Okay, then okay, I feel like of course it's loud. I'm turning it off. Okay, I feel as though kind of like deeper, more like mauve-y blushes I don't have a ton of. I'm gonna have to take my watch off. So maybe we can jump into this kind of shade of blush next. So up first, I have the shade Encourage from Rare Beauty, and obviously that is like a heavy swatch, but this is a really beautiful formula. This is the glowy formula from Rare Beauty. I know they have a glowy and a matte, and I do think that that is so pretty. Oh my gosh, you guys, I already filmed. I don't know if it'll be up before or after this video, but I already filmed my bronzer and highlighter, and when I was swatching the highlights, it was literally driving me crazy because you like literally couldn't see anything. But I don't know, like, it's just like an awkward angle to film at, so I'm so sorry. But hopefully you can see some. And I also am like, I should swatch on this arm because anyway, okay, maybe I will swatch on the arm that doesn't have the tattoos. Well, we're gonna at least try that, even though then I'm like using my non-dominant hand. Okay, there we have Rare Beauty Encourage, did I say? Yes, Encourage. Really, really beautiful shade. What are some other, I have Raspberry Beret from Merit, which is also kind of like this deeper plum purple. And I actually swatched both of these on my cheeks. Like I did one on one cheek, one on the other day, kind of in preparation for my declutter, and knowing these were similar and trying to decide if there was one I would potentially be willing to declutter. I asked my daughter which side of my face she liked better, or which blush she liked better, and she did say Encourage from Rare Beauties. And I also have other Merit blushes that I'll definitely be keeping. So I am going to declutter Raspberry Beret from Merit. And I'm trying to think, I don't even know if I've opened this one from Glossier. Oh, I have. Okay, so this is the Cloud Paint in the shade Eve. I don't think that this is gonna be super similar because Eve is like very deep. I really want the shade, I think it's like Storm. Ooh, that's deeper even than I thought, but how much will this sheer out? Ooh, that is like, ooh, I don't know. Oh. That's like such a bad swatch. I feel like that does not do this formula justice. Oh, do I want... A part of me like wants to keep it because I do feel like it's like a unique shade. A part of me wants to go swatch it on my face right now with like a very sheared out brush. I think I might do that quick. Okay, this is pretty, and I feel like the hoarder in me wants to keep this, but the realist in me thinks that when I'm reaching for a blush shade that's kind of in this color story, it's usually during colder weather, and I just even still don't reach for this type of a blush shade that frequently. So if I feel like I want a shade like this, I feel like I can just reach for the Rare Beauty Encourage. So I think I'm actually going to also declutter Eve. And then I'm not quite sure, oh, that's right, I have two Say Chilies. I meant to give one of these to my sister, but I'm gonna quickly swatch Chili. I don't think Chili's, yeah, it's definitely more like pink rather than mauve. So not super similar, but also like a little bit. No, definitely more pink. Anyway, I only need to keep one Chili. I'm gonna give my sister the little mini Chili. Should I give my sister the big Chili and keep mini Chili? I don't know, Hannah, you tell me. Right now I'm gonna give you mini Chili, but if you want big Chili, let me know. So we're gonna keep the big Say Chili. I'm also definitely keeping, well, I want to use those to swatch next to other things. I don't think, oh, I know. I have Rose Inks Camellia. This one is also kind of in this kind of mauve sort of category. Sorry if that's like the most annoying swatch, but I just feel like if it's just a finger swatch, it's like much more heavy than it actually would translate on the cheeks. This is definitely not as pigmented as Encourage, and a little bit almost more purple. I do really like the Rose Ink formula. I am going to keep this one around. I would like to, it's my only Rose Ink blush, so I would like to keep that. And then, let's see, I have Raspberry Sparkler from Kaja. This is their Dewy Bar. I do really like the Dewy Bars, but I will say there's other shades I think I prefer, and I don't feel like I need all 6 of these. Yeah, that one is definitely more of like that kind of raspberry or berry purple sort of shade. Definitely not a shade I feel like I would get a ton of use out of, so I am going to pass along the Kaja Dewy Bar in Berry Sparkler. I think that might be it for like blushes in this color story. So I'm gonna wipe my arm off and we will move on to the next. I realized I missed laying out a few of my blushes. Okay. Let's move on to, well, let's swatch this one right here. This is from Glossier. This is in the shade Spark. This, oh, I haven't even opened this one yet. This is like red. And I just, again, feel like if I'm wanting a sunburnt blush these days, I'm liking something more like even like something just like more orangey rather than like a true red. So I'm going to, because I haven't even opened Spark yet, I'm gonna pass that one along as well. Let's move on to like here. I have the Pinkgasm from Charlotte Tilbury, which is this really beautiful kind of pinky golden sort of shade. Not golden, but like pink sparkly, almost like a golden sort of shift to it. It is pretty similar to Melon Mojito from Bite Beauty. I'm regretting using, oh my gosh, I am regretting swatching with this hand. Oh, I got way too much of that, way too much. Okay, there is Bite Beauty, oh, wow. Bite Beauty Melon Mojito. I am gonna keep both of those. I'm gonna keep swatching though. I do feel like they are different enough. Plus I'm currently trying to pan this one and I really like Charlotte Tilbury Pinkgasm. So I am keeping both of those. I don't know if I have anything else that's gonna be like truly like pink with a golden sort of shift. Let me just swatch maybe a couple more neutral shades here. So here is, I think this is Rosy from Say. Yes, this is Rosy. So this really beautiful kind of matte light pink sort of shade, really beautiful and kind of just like sheared out, really gives like a beautiful pink natural flush to the cheeks. I really like the Say Dewy Blush formula, so I'm gonna keep Rosy. And then I also want to swatch, let's see, I want to swatch Fenty's Petal Poppin', which I do believe I will keep, but I feel like this could be kind of similar to, there's like a fuzz there. Kind of similar, but really not that similar to Rosy. Yeah, that's definitely way more, I don't know if I'd say way more pink. Just a different shade of pink altogether. I love Petal Poppin', so definitely keeping Petal Poppin' as well. What else do we think is gonna be kind of like in this? I feel like that's gonna be more of like a well, I guess we're going with pinks right now. Okay, this is Strawberry Sorbet from Kaja, and that is a dewy bar. Okay, that is more of like, I'm gonna call this like a pink sunburn, like definitely more of like a sunburnt in a pink sheen sort of tint. Actually don't feel like that's super similar to anything else that I have, and I don't feel like I have like a true pink sunburn sort of blush. So I actually think I'm gonna keep Strawberry Sorbet. The Glossier Cloud Paint in the shade Puff, I recluttered into my collection, and I feel like through this declutter series I should learn that not a lot of reclutters stay. I feel like Puff is kind of similar to, pretty similar to Petal Poppin'. And I just, they're not quite the same obviously, but they're similar enough, and I just think that the Petal Poppin' formula is just a little bit easier to work with. I think just in general for me, I think a cream blush is a little bit easier than a liquid blush. So I'm going to re-declutter the Puff, the Glossier Cloud Paint in Puff. And then do I want to wipe my arm off yet? I know that I have some pinks. Let's see. Okay, I have this blush from Lawless. This is in the shade Valentine. This is their new cream blush formula. There's Valentine, which is like definitely a unique blush shade. I'd be curious. I'm gonna grab my Patrick Ta Major Holiday Face Palette. I'd be curious how this swatches next to one of the Patrick Ta shades. So I want to swatch that next to this shade out of the Major Holiday palette from Patrick Ta. They are a little bit different than I was expecting. This is more of like true pink, whereas this has a little bit more purple to it. I'm like, do I need both? Probably not. I just feel like that's kind of unique that it has almost that like purple undertone to it. Oh, well then I'm like, okay, if I put this powder shade, which has a bit of a purple, oh boy, that's a swatch. I don't feel like I need both. I am keeping my Patrick Ta Major Holiday Face Palette that's like in my collection. So I am going to pass along Valentine from Lawless. I will keep some of the other shades, so I just don't feel like I need to keep everyone. I've already passed a couple of these along to my mom and sister. Oh, then I have the shade Cherry Pie, which let's swatch Cherry Pie. I wonder if that's kind of similar to that Dewy Bar. Ooh, Cherry Pie is definitely like kind of that sunburnt sort of finish. Okay, wait, I'm going on my, I want to do this on my left hand. Oh. Okay, there's Cherry Pie, like a thick swatch. There's the Dewy Bar and Strawberry Sorbet. I almost think I like Strawberry Sorbet just a little bit better because it's a little bit dewier, and I just like something a little bit dewier, even though they're not the same, but they're similar enough. I think I'm also gonna pass along Lawless Cherry Pie. Okay, I believe that's everything for kind of like the aside from my cool tone pinks. We can do cool tone pinks next, but they are different than these warmer toned pinks. All right, let's bust through my cool tone pinks really quick. Okay, so I have Gumdrop from Lawless, which we are gonna swatch right there. So there is Gumdrop. I wore this on my cheeks the other day and I thought it was actually such a beautiful cool toned pink shade. Then I have Baby from Say. I really enjoy Baby. It has a bit of almost like a lilac undertone. All right, there is Baby. So those two are pretty similar. This one has just a hint more of like a lilac undertone, and it's obviously a bit more sheer and dewy. And then I also have Bubble from Persona, and I have Bubble in both the cream blush formula as well as the powder. There is Bubble. So all three of those pretty similar. I feel like the Lawless definitely has like the most opacity to it. I am going to declutter Bubble just because I do have the powder formula of this, and I'm much more likely to reach for the powder formula over the cream. And I am going to keep Lawless, Gumdrop, as well as Say Baby. So I don't feel like I need to keep all three, but we'll be keeping two of them. So those are my cool tone pink. Okay, I do have this one from RMS. This is the Lip to Cheek in the shade Spell. I used to love this. This really is just this like really nudie neutral blush shade, which is actually really like my vibe. Let's see what else we have to compare this to. I have the NYX Sweet Cheeks blush in the shade Nude Tude. I also really like Nude Tude. I feel like that one is a little bit more, a little bit more opaque, but those two are pretty similar actually. And I do feel like this one has more wear time, but this one is like a little bit glowier, but those actually really are quite similar. And then I have Terracotta from Merit, which is also kind of like this nude, but Terracotta is definitely a little bit warmer. I'm definitely keeping Terracotta. I really like Terracotta from Merit. And then since we are swatching like these nudie neutral, I will also swatch REM's Stage Mom, which is again kind of like a warmer toned nudie blush, but this really is like my vibe. Like I really like these nude leaning blushes. So I will also keep Stage Mom. I'm definitely going to keep these Sweet Cheeks Nude Tude. I'm just kind of like on the fence with the RMS one. I like it because it has that glow to it, whereas this one is definitely more matte. And this one is like more of like a nudie, almost like cool toned nude, whereas these are two warm tones. What else do I have? I have Fox from Merit. What does Fox swatch like? Okay, Fox is not like super similar. Or is it? Or is it? And then I also have Beverly Hills from Merit, which is not the same, but like, is it the same? Okay, I thought when I pulled all these out that I was gonna declutter the RMS Beauty one, but swatched, I'm like, okay, this really just is like my vibe right now. So I actually do want to keep this. I don't want to declutter just to declutter, so I'm gonna keep that one. I also am going to be keeping Fox from Merit and Beverly Hills. I'm currently working on hopefully completing Beverly Hills this year, so those two will stay. And then I also just realized I have Fenty Glow, which I didn't swatch. Fenty Glow looks like that. I'd actually be curious how Fenty Glow compares to Terracotta. Fenty Glow definitely has like some sparkle running throughout. Then I'm like, okay, is Terracotta like just, like, does it sheer out really to just really too much of nothing? Kind of. Oh, but I do just like, oh, I'm gonna keep both for now. Keeping both. And then actually speaking of nude blushes, I have Cranberry Cooler. Look how disgusting that looks. But I really do love this blush. So this one is from Kaja. It is one of their dewy bars. And this one is this really beautiful kind of like red brown sort of shade. There it is swatched right there. I really like this. This is my favorite shade from the Kaja line. So I'm gonna keep that. And I don't really think that is, like, I'm curious how similar this is to, this one is Fig Smoothie, which I guess I probably, oops, yikes. I probably could have swatched Fig Smoothie with some of the other mauve shades. Wow, that was a heavy swatch. I feel like Fig Smoothie is probably similar enough to like encourage from Rare Beauty. And actually I realized too, I have from Lawless this shade right here, which is kind of like a cool, this is more of like a cool toned neutral pink, so not super similar, but I'm going to declutter the Fig Smoothie from Kaja. This one swatched right here from Lawless, the shade Angel, I will keep. Oh, and I totally forgot about my Patrick Ta duos. So I have She's So LA, which this is like a brown tone neutral. I've recluttered this. I feel like I decluttered this one definitely to declutter. I definitely will keep that in my collection. I do really enjoy, like I said, like a nude blush shade. So I'm gonna keep that one from Patrick Ta. I feel like that just leaves us with my oranges and corals. There's definitely some oranges and corals that are more intense than others. So I'm gonna start with this one from Rare Beauty. This is in Joy. So there's Joy swatched out right there. Really beautiful blush. Definitely giving like sunburnt vibes, like a sunburn, like a corally sunburn. I also have the Say Dewy blush in the shade Poppy, which kind of is giving like the same vibe as the Rare Beauty. But this one definitely is reading like a little bit more reddish pink, while this is reading like more of like a true orange. Kind of want to look at, I feel like these two are very, very similar. This is the Kaja Dewy Bar. Oh, if I did a heavier swatch. This is the Kaja Dewy Bar in Strawberry Sorbet. I guess Strawberry Sorbet is a little bit more pink. I don't think I'm gonna reach for Strawberry Sorbet, even though I know I said like I don't really have a pink sunburnt look. I feel like if I'm looking for a sunburn right now, it's like this would be like close to like a reddish sunburn, and then Joy is more of like an orangey sunburn. Then I also have Huda Beauty's Coral Cutie. I feel like this is, ooh, Coral Cutie is giving like almost the exact same vibe as the Say, kind of. Okay, Coral Cutie and the Say are super similar. I feel like I should only keep one of these. I'm gonna keep swatching though. Okay, this one is Peach Cobbler from Kaja, the Dewy Bar in Peach Cobbler. Ooh, Peach Cobbler I like for like an orange that doesn't feel quite as intense as Joy. So I think maybe for an like for a true orange sunburn, I'm gonna keep Peach Cobbler and I'm going to declutter Rare Beauty Joy. The last Say Dewy Bar I have left to swatch is Grapefruit Gelato. Grapefruit Gelato is not really like a orangey coral. I don't even really know how I would describe that. I'm like, I do have two, I have two Kaja Dewy Bars already. Do I really need this third one? I did use Grapefruit Gelato a lot already, so I feel like that's where I'm like, do I want to keep that? I probably don't. I'm like, I'm already feeling still overwhelmed with how much blush is here. I have Lawless Starburst, which I really like. There's Lawless Starburst, definitely like a lighter coral situation. And definitely more matte than the Kaja Dewy Bar, but like a lighter corally orange than the Rare Beauty. I'm definitely keeping Starburst from Lawless. I have more orange blush. I have the Danessa Myricks cream blush in the shade Bellini. This one is like very pigmented and intense. I'm also gonna swatch, I have Melt Golden Hour. I love Melt Golden Hour. It's definitely more of like, Melt Golden Hour is almost like a peach highlight, but I really really love Melt Golden Hour. I will definitely keep Melt Golden Hour. I'm looking at the Danessa Myricks, and while I really like this, I just feel like that's so pigmented, and that is just like not exactly what I'm going for anymore. I think I actually will declutter the Danessa Myricks Bellini, just because I feel like I'm gonna get more use out of, like, if I'm wanting something orangey, I'm either gonna reach into Starburst, which just feels a little bit more approachable, or if I want something a little bit dewier, I would reach into Peach Cobbler from Kaja. Okay, I do have both She's the Moment and She's So LA from Patrick Ta. I'm gonna wipe my arm off again, even though I kind of wanna compare. Well, I'm just gonna wipe my arm off. Okay, here is Do We Know Her? At least the cream part of Do We Know Her. And then here is the cream part of She's the Moment. And these two are so similar. But this one is definitely a little bit more orangey, whereas this one has a little bit more pink in it. I'm gonna keep both. I am gonna keep both. Then I'm like, I do want to keep, I really do like this Kaja Dewy Bar and Peach Cobbler. I'm like, do I need Peach Cobbler? But I do, yeah, I do really like that one. Even though that's very similar, but maybe a little bit more sheer than the Patrick Ta. So anyway, keeping both of these Patrick Tas. And then I think, oh yeah, I want to decide between the Say and the Huda Coral Cutie. I think I'm actually going to declutter Say Poppy. I do really like this, but because these are so similar, and I do have 3 other Say blushes in my collection, I kind of want to keep the Huda Beauty formula just kind of for reference. Like if I'm picking between the two, I'd like to, and I like both of them, I'd like to keep the Huda Beauty so that I have this for like formula reference, and I already have a bunch of other Say blushes. So I'm gonna declutter Say's Poppy. I do really like that shade. I would recommend it. I just don't feel like I need all of these in my collection. Then I have Fenty Beauty's Strawberry Drip, which, oh, Strawberry Drip is probably similar to if I want like a pinky sunburn. I'm just curious, just so you guys can see how similar that is to Strawberry Sorbet. Was this Strawberry Drip? Oh yeah, they're both strawberry. That is Kaja's Strawberry Sorbet, and then that is Fenty Beauty's Strawberry Drip. I'm gonna keep Strawberry Drip. I absolutely love this blush, and I love the Fenty cream blush formula. Then the only other cream blush I have left in my collection to share is this one from Makeup by Mario. This is in the shade Earthy Pink. I forgot to swatch this with my pinks, but I love this shade. It's almost kind of like a cool toned mauve-y pink. It's really, really beautiful. I find it to be really flattering on my skin, and I really like this one. So definitely keeping this. Okay, let's see how we did in the cream blush category. Okay, there are 16 cream blushes that we're decluttering, which felt really good to me. And then I got over here and I was like, okay, there's 27 cream blushes that we're keeping. And that still does just feel like so many cream blushes. Oh, but there's like nothing. I'm not gonna declutter just to declutter. I am hoping maybe that I can finish up this cream blush this year and this cream blush, so maybe we would move 2 out of my, but I should really stop buying cream blush. Anyway, decluttering 16, keeping 27 cream blushes. Okay, let's move on to the powder. We are on to powder highlights. Honestly, I'm like, do I have less powder highlights now than I do cream highlights? I also will say I do feel pretty attached to a lot of my powder blushes. If I was saying highlights, I meant blushes. So I feel like this is going to be extremely difficult. I am first gonna say this one right here, which is reflecting off me, is going to be a declutter, so we'll get this one out of the way. This is from Iconic London, and this is in the shade Kissed by the Sun. I thought I was buying a different shade, and while I think this is really pretty, it just is not, like, that is just not a good shade for like my skin tone, especially being that it is more of like a blush topper. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll swatch it over here. Can we see that? Can we? I like want you guys to be able to see. Like, it is. Well, now that I'm like shearing it out, okay, hold on, I'm gonna go put this on my cheeks. Okay, I'm so sorry to do this to you. I lied. I'm actually going to keep this blush. It is this really beautiful kind of like orange. It's very like highlighty and metallic. It's like a blush topper, but that is so freaking pretty, and I need to use that. I just put it on my cheeks and I'm like, okay, I actually really like that. Okay, never mind, this is staying. And oh, I should swatch things in like color stories now. So, oh, I also don't know if I have like a lot of other like warm orangey sort of blushes. Kiss of Copper would not be similar at all, but we know I'm keeping Bare Minerals Kiss of Copper. I absolutely love this blush. And actually, that being said, I'm gonna swatch Honest Beauty's Foxy next to Kiss of Copper because I'm pretty sure these are like kind of similar. Okay, kind of, but also not. But I also feel like Foxy kind of reminds me of like NARS Orgasm, and I just feel like I never feel inclined to reach for this blush. I have no qualms with like the formula or anything on this. I just feel like it's not one I get excited to reach for, and it just kind of sits in my collection. So I'm going to declutter this Foxy, Honest Beauty Foxy. Okay, let's see. Okay, so from Give Beauty, I have Stars Aligned, which is a cream, not cream, sorry, which is a powder blush duo. This is new to my collection, kind of goes kind of in the same, oops, sorry, that was not the correct thing. There we go. Kind of similar color stories, or kind of like similar-ish to some of the ones that I've just swatched. Actually, now I'm like looking and I'm like, okay, would I actually be going for something that metallic on the cheeks? Like that looks more like a highlighter to me, but like it would be too deep of a highlight. I mean, that is so pretty though as a highlight. Okay, I'm keeping this for now. Maybe I would declutter Foxy by the end of the year. I need to use it a little bit before I feel confident that. I'm definitely keeping Stars Aligned. I really, really, really like that blush. Let's see, I don't know how similar the Charlotte Tilbury, this is the Pillow Talk Intense Cheek to Chic. There's the Cheek to Chic, and I always just use this where I just like swirl everything together, and that is what I get the blush shade to look like. Again, just really right up my alley in terms of just like a nudie, neutral sort of blush shade. Love this, definitely keeping. I'm also going to swatch this next to one of my other favorite blushes, which is Laura Mercier's Fresco. Now, Fresco is definitely like more of just like a true nude. I absolutely love Fresco. It has a bit of like, oops, glitter particles running throughout, but I don't really notice them on my cheeks, and it's just like it's almost just like your blush but better. Like it's so natural to like my personal skin tone. I absolutely love this blush, so I'm definitely keeping that. I'll also swatch MAC's So Natural, which I love. This is actually, I should have swatched this maybe with like my cream blushes, because it is like a cream formula. And again, this is like extremely similar to kind of Laura Mercier's Fresco, but this one is a cream formula, and that it is just so light and natural on the cheeks. I absolutely love MAC's So Natural. And then I'll also swatch Tarte's Concept. I feel like I recluttered this one into my collection. But I was like going through the declutter bin that was at my mom's house, and I was like, okay, this blush is literally like right up my alley for what I'm loving right now, which is just a nude blush. This one almost on the skin leans a little bit pinkier than I would anticipate, but I absolutely love this one too, so I'm definitely keeping that. Then I can swatch MAC's Warm Soul, which again is kind of like a nudie blush. There's MAC's Warm Soul. This one is definitely more warm tone. Again, I feel like you can like barely see that swatched on the skin, but that is what I've just been absolutely loving for the blush. I feel like I can definitely see the dome starting to like go down a bit on my MAC Warm Soul, which makes me so happy, but this one is also definitely staying. A neutral blush that I know I'm going to declutter is this one from Physicians Formula. This is in Pink Sands. This one I'm actually going to swatch on my other arm just because I don't plan to swatch really anything next to this one. It is, again, kind of what I've been talking about, a little bit maybe more on the pinkish side though, and I like something a little bit more like brown toned. Plus, I just do not love the bulky packaging that comes with this product, so I'm going to declutter this. Speaking of like a nude blush that's almost like a bronzer. I have this one from MAC, which I did reclutter into my collection again, just because I've been loving a blush in this shade. This is from the Melrose launch, or the I think it was Melrose, or was there a blush named Melrose? This blush is called Fashion District. So I'm gonna keep that. I'm also definitely keeping Buxom Seychelles, which is more of like a cool toned nude blush. There it is, swatched right there. This one is really beautiful because it has a bit of a sheen to it and isn't a totally matte blush, which I personally love. I have used the heck out of this blush and nowhere near pan. One of my favorite blushes of all time, so definitely keeping that. Okay, I promise we are getting the nudes out of the way right now, which is why maybe I'm having even a tougher time decluttering. But I have, okay, so I have Becca Songbird, which is this warm toned blush right here, which, okay, as I keep going through these I'm like, I definitely don't need to keep this. I'm not gonna use this, the Iconic London. It is so pretty, but it's way too metallic for me. It's definitely more of like a highlighter. Like, I'd rather reach for Becca Songbird. I know they're not like the same, but they're kind of the same. Okay, I am gonna declutter Kissed by the Sun from Iconic London. Oh, Kissed by the Sun, the name makes me want to keep it. I'm decluttering it, okay. I need to stop. But I am gonna keep Becca Songbird, and then in that same vein, I have Becca Wild Honey. And if you guys are wondering, I feel like I've decluttered one of these blushes, Songbird. I think I have decluttered before. There's Wild Honey, which Wild Honey is like, oh, my perfect warm matte blush shade. Love that. I kind of want to swatch Songbird next to this orange blush out of my NARS. Okay, that one's definitely more orange. I'm like, do I need... I know I've recluttered Songbird into my collection and then literally do use it, but I'm like, okay, I really feel like if I'm wanting something similar to this, I'd rather reach for like Wild Honey. I do like Wild Honey more than Songbird. I feel like I actually am ready to let go of Songbird again. So I'm gonna declutter Songbird. I feel like I'm good with decluttering Songbird. We're gonna declutter Songbird. And then let's see, do I have any other bronzy ones? I don't believe I have any other like bronze neutral blushes. Okay, let's move on to maybe pinks next, and we can end with oranges and corals. Okay, so I have this MAC Glow Play in the shade Cheer Up. This again is a cream formula. I should have included this with my cream blushes. Sorry about that. There is the Glow Play in Cheer Up. That is really pretty, but I just feel like I am not really reaching for a shade like this, and I just feel like I'm forcing myself to reach into this every time that I do reach for this. So I actually think I'm ready to say goodbye to the MAC Cheer Up blush. Yeah, I feel like I'm ready to say goodbye to that one. Another pink in my collection that is more mauve-y. I can swatch this one. This is the Rare Beauty blush in the shade Cheer. And this obviously is more of like a blush topper, very highlighty. I know I was just complaining about like metallic cheeks with that Iconic London. And then I'll swatch this one from RMS Beauty too, because this is more of like a blush topper as well. I actually just recently used the RMS Beauty blush in my chopping block Get Ready With Me, because I was considering decluttering this, but I actually thought this was really pretty on the cheeks. So I'm gonna keep both the Rare Beauty and the RMS blush. And then another pink blush, I have Becca Flower Child, which I think, you guys, I think I'm ready to let go of Becca Flower Child. It's so old in my collection. I again just prefer, like, pink is just not my go-to for a blush. It's not. And it's getting old. It is getting old. I'm ready to say goodbye to Becca Flower Child. All right, we're doing it. We're decluttering Becca Flower Child. Let's look at my Lawless. I don't think these ones are like super, yeah, those are not pink. Okay, we can do the Ofra Samantha March Chick Lit blush. So we have the pink blush, which is a really beautiful kind of cool nude pink. Like, that is truly my vibe. And then we have the two kind of mixed together. I never really reach for like this side on its own, but these two mixed together also just such a beautiful, I need to reach for that more often, such a beautiful, kind of exactly what I would be looking for, like a nude, a brownie nude sort of shade with a bit of a spark, or not sparkle, a bit of like a sheen to it. I need to reach for this more. This is literally my vibe these days, so this is definitely staying. Then I have Kiss of Pink from Bare Minerals. And I do love this blush as well. There it is swatched right there. This is really giving kind of like a neutral pink, which if I'm wanting to reach for a pink, it's gonna be more of a neutral pink. So really love Kiss of Pink, and this just kind of like further solidifies like I'm ready to let go of Becca Flower Child. Like I'd rather reach for this pink over this pink. So keeping Kiss of Pink, decluttering. Obviously we already decluttered the Flower Child. Then I have Makeup by Mario's Desert Rose. I also absolutely adore this blush because it is kind of this like, kind of like mauve-y, cool toned, neutral pink. I think it's so pretty. I don't know if you can even see that swatched right there. Hopefully you can see it just a little bit. But again, just something not super pigmented and just so beautiful. This is also one of my favorite blushes in my collection. I've talked about this a lot. So this one's definitely staying. I do have the MAC Fairly Precious blush topper. I absolutely love this. I kind of use this as like a highlight more. Like I really reach this more as like a pink blush topper slash highlight, and I think it is just so pretty. So I am definitely keeping MAC Fairly Precious. And then let's see, this one kind of reads pretty pink. This is the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Blush in the shade Sublime Flush. Like where can I swatch this? We're gonna go right there. Now this one is definitely more of like a cool toned pink. I again don't know, can you even see that? I'm like can we even see that at all? This is really beautiful though. I love the Hourglass formula because it is not a totally matte formula. And I feel like if I'm wanting like a baby pink sort of cheek, this is so pretty because it's not so stark like cool toned pink, but it does have, it just has this really beautiful kind of baby cheek sort of flush to it. I really love this blush, so definitely keeping that. Then I'm like, should I swatch? I'm like, I don't even know how to classify these. So this is Nabla Truth, which is one of my absolute favorite kind of metallic, one of my favorite, I don't know if I would call this even a blush. I really do use this as a blush topper and on its own. There it is swatched right there. It is such a beautiful shade. I absolutely love that. And then I'll swatch it kind of with, okay, so we have Nabla Lola, which is also like a very glowy sort of blush. And I purchased Lola because I loved Truth so much that I really just kind of wanted to own more from Nabla. Like I just wanted more of the skin glazings, but this is just not really a shade that I am reaching for. I feel like it's almost like too deep for me to be so sheeny, or even like no, I don't want to say metallic's not the right word, but I think I can confidently declutter Lola. I just don't find myself reaching for that. And then I want to swatch Independence, which is my last Nabla skin glazing blush. So there is Nabla Independence, which is more of this kind of like mauve toned, cooler toned shade. Definitely something I like reaching for more in the winter time. I do actually still really enjoy this, and I feel like this gives a nice glowy sort of winter cheek in my opinion. So I will keep Independence as well as I'm keeping Truth, but we will declutter Lola. And then, okay, speaking of like a berry toned or like a cool toned cheek, I have Berry Juicy from Huda, the Glowish line. And that is, why am I swatching this like in the crook of my elbow? There is that one swatched right there. I definitely want to keep this in my collection just because I don't really have another shade like this, something that's so like berry toned. And I think it is really beautiful for the winter time specifically. So I'm going to keep that one. And I do want to swatch that next to Indian Summer from Lawless, just because they're both kind of in that berry toned family. Interesting. I do like the Lawless blush formula. I want to swatch them. Okay, there are the two swatched down here. This is the Huda Glowish one, and this is the Lawless one. I feel like those are so similar. I'm like, I don't feel like I necessarily need both. And I feel like I would get, like, I feel like Very Juicy personally would be a little bit more flattering on my skin. I don't know why I'm feeling that way. I do love the Lawless formula though, but I also feel like I don't need both, and I don't know why. I'm just feeling more drawn to the Huda Glowish. So I actually am going to declutter Indian Summer from Lawless. Now I know I'm absolutely keeping my Lawless Angel Suede. This is like one of my favorite blushes in my collection, and I love to layer Angel Suede. Like, how pretty is that? Oh, Lawless does have such a beautiful blush formula because it is not like a totally matte blush. It has this really beautiful sort of satin sheen to it. I freaking love Angel Suede from Lawless, and I love to layer Truth on top of that, but definitely keeping the Lawless Angel Suede. And then I want to swatch Persona Georgia, which is also a blush I get a ton of use out of. That one is a really beautiful kind of orangey coral as well, kind of similar to Lawless Angel Suede, but this one is a little bit brighter, and they both do kind of have a bit of a sheen to it, but I feel like the Persona one is just a little less sheeny, but they both have like just a bit of a sheen to them. Anyway, I'm gonna keep both of them, even if they are super similar. This is like, I love this sort of blush shade. Then I have this one from Cover FX. This is in Peach, Soft Peach, which I recluttered into my collection and actually got a ton of use out of earlier this year because this is basically like a nude peach, and I really like that. I'm actually gonna put the, and then you have like that if you want it to be a little bit glowier. I actually think this is so pretty, and I'm so glad that I still had this left kind of lying around in my collection. I'm gonna keep this. I feel like I'll still continue to get a lot of use out of that. Then I have Kosas Papaya, which was such a staple and such a favorite when I first got this. I also obviously have a pan in it, and I think I will also be keeping this. Yeah, I really do like that, especially because I feel like this is like kind of more like pinky peach rather than like a true orangey peach. So I'm definitely going to keep Papaya from Kosas, and that just means the last remaining powder blush is Persona's Bubble, which I told you guys I was decluttering the cream version because I would rather use the powder. There is the powder. That was, why did I do that? There is the powder version, and that is a really beautiful kind of cool toned pink lilac shade, but you really can sheer that out, and it really does give this really beautiful kind of like pinched cheek effect. I really like this one, so I'm definitely keeping this as well. And we definitely did not do as well in the powder blush category, but let's tally up what we did. We are decluttering 8, keeping 25. That does mean I have less powder blush in my collection than I do cream blush. But that is where we're at. Like I said, I really do feel like I am like attached to some of my blushes, and I don't want to declutter things just to declutter. So if the blush portion was a little bit more disappointing, I am sorry, but hopefully it proves to you that I really do love my blushes. But that is it for the powder blush declutter. Decluttering 8, keeping 25. All right, you guys, for the face palette category, we're gonna start with everything duos and trios. So these are all of my duos and trios. So we can start, I know like I reflect in some of these, so I kind of want to start with things I reflect in. Up first, I have my Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow. This is what this looks like. I got a ton of use out of this when I first brought this into my collection, but I really have not reached for it much in the last like year and a half. I still think it's really beautiful, and I would really like to maybe potentially roll this into a project to try and at bare minimum like use up the bronzer side. Like I do think that that is so beautiful, and I really should just get use out of this. So I'm gonna keep this. Then I also have my Natasha Denona Blush and Glow, which looks like this. And this is tough because I do feel like I got quite a bit of use out of my Blush and Glow earlier this year. Oh yeah, even the blush is like a bit glowy and beautiful. Yeah, I'm gonna keep this. I feel like I would declutter this just to declutter it, and that is not the point of this declutter. So I'm gonna keep that. Then I have this one from LH Cosmetics. This is the Duo Dimension blush. I don't know if it's in the shade Area, but it's the shades Scope and Link, I believe. These are what these look like. This is so tough because I feel like I don't reach for like mauve shades that much. But what I like about this blush duo is that they are like sheeny sort of shades. I actually do really like that. Okay, I am gonna keep this. I also don't own a lot from LH Cosmetics, so I feel like this is worth keeping. My Natasha Denona My Dream Cheek Trio. This, I was actually pretty disappointed in. I was so excited to purchase this, and I just do not feel myself excited to reach for this. I don't feel like any of these 3 products looks super special on my face. And I feel like when I first got this, I really wanted to like it because it was more expensive. It's Natasha Denona, but it just isn't my favorite. And I feel like my sister or even my mom could get so much more use out of this than I could, or a friend. So I am going to declutter this one and pass this along to someone else. Then I have my Scooby-Doo Glam Light Duo, this blush duo. I was thinking I for sure was gonna keep this, but now I'm looking at this, and while I think that these are really beautiful, they are just like more pigmented shades and really just not shades that I personally am feeling like inclined to reach for these days. Like, I am not looking for a really bright blush these days. I'm definitely opting for something a little bit more subtle or natural on the cheeks. And while I do really love the packaging, it's so hard because I do love the packaging, but it's like, would I really miss this in my collection? Like, am I waking up every day and looking at this packaging is like bringing me joy? When I do look at the packaging, it is, but it's not even packaging I'm like looking at every day. So like, do I really need to keep it around just because it's incredible packaging? Probably not. The packaging is so cute though. I feel like maybe I'll give this to my daughter. I'm gonna pass this along to my daughter. I feel like she would love this. Then I'm like, do I keep it in my collection or do I, hold on. There's the blush. Oh, maybe I'm not, maybe just not quite yet ready to part with this. If I don't reach for this at all this summer, then I need to declutter this by the end of the year, but I'm gonna keep this for right now. All right, my Laura Geller Baked Gelato Swirl palette. I am gonna keep this. I can't remember if I've decluttered this in the past and recluttered it into my collection, but I actually am just so happy to have this. I really love the Highlight Peach Glow, and I love Ballerina, and even Gilded Honey is beautiful on like my shoulders. Like, I do like it on my shoulders in the summer, so I wish the packaging wasn't so bulky, but I'm gonna keep this for the time being. Then I have my Adept Trio in the shade Valentina, and this really, I feel like I thought that these shades were the most beautiful, so that's why I purchased this, but realistically this was not the face palette from the line that would match me and my skin tone best, so I just am never reaching for this because these shades just, they don't work on my skin tone. So I'm gonna pass this along to someone who can get more use out of it, and I'm going to declutter that. I will keep my Lancome highlighting trio. I have pan in every single shade of this, so clearly I really enjoy this palette and I like having this around. That one will stay. And then finally I have my Laura Mercier Standing Ovation Cheek Palette. I was so excited when I first purchased this, but I feel like aside from this shade right here, it looks so dirty. Aside from that shade, I really don't reach for this palette, and I have other shades similar to this in my collection that I can be reaching for. So I almost would just rather pass this along to someone who I feel like would get more use out of all of the shades. And I think, oh, it's so hard because I do really like, it's so cute and I like having it, but I'm not reaching for it enough. So I'm gonna pass this one along as well. So I'm gonna pass along that, meaning that we are decluttering 3 trios, and then we will be keeping 6 from the duo and trio category. Okay, that feels okay. Decluttering 3, keeping 6. Let's move on to the face palettes. All right, you guys, we're on to then this jumbled pile of the rest of my face palettes. And as I hope I mentioned in the introduction, I have really grown a fond appreciation for a lot of my face palettes. Like, I really like face palettes. I don't know, there's just something that feels really special about them, and I really enjoy using them. So this portion might feel more like a collection. I don't see myself getting rid of a ton that's sitting in front of me. Let's start with my NARS palettes because I know I'm not getting rid of any of these. So up first, I have the NARS Orgasm on the Beach palette, which I get a lot of the NARS palettes end up looking the same, but there is something that I just love about the NARS face palettes to the point where I feel like I'm a collector now. I will say I did declutter their quad that they came out with last year. I much prefer like their 6-pan face palettes, but that is Orgasm on the Beach. Then we have Overlust, which I feel like was a little bit different from anything that I personally own from NARS or have seen them release. They have the 3 like cream to powder highlight formulas or highlighters on the top, and then some more like neutral blushes for the bottom. I really enjoyed that palette. Then I have the Rising Star palette, which I enjoyed this one because I really liked this blush right here. I thought it was a little bit unique for them. And then we have the All That Glitters palette, which came out last holiday season. I really enjoyed this shade from the All That Glitters palette. And then the newest addition to my NARS face palette collection is the Laguna Ultimate face palette, which looks like this. I will say, I don't know, I feel like maybe I shouldn't have purchased this one because I feel like I have this all in my collection. But anyway, I'm currently keeping this because it's very, very new to my collection. Okay, trying to kind of like keep things, scoot things more in frame. I don't know. What am I trying to say? Okay, let's talk about some more oldies that I'm definitely keeping. So I have the Lorac Shine Bright Color Source palette. I am so glad that I have not decluttered this because these 3 blush shades are like right up my alley in terms of just what I'm loving for a blush these days. Just something more like brownie nude and just like super neutral. So I'm really happy to still have this in my collection and obviously going to keep that. I will also be keeping my Bella Beauté Bar Oracle palette. This is a 6-pan highlighter palette, and I really like this for inner corner highlighting. I wouldn't say that I use these highlighters on my face because they are, some of them are like duochrome or multi-chrome, very shifty, and not really what I'm looking for on the cheeks, but love this for an inner corner highlighting palette. So that's really what I keep that around for. Then I have the Smashbox Cali Contour face palette, which I absolutely fell in love with when I first brought this into my collection. I will say I haven't used this as much recently, but I really should pull this back out because this bronzer I feel like I could get a ton of use out of. The blush shade used to be one of my favorite blush shades, so I really just need to really pull this back out and show it the love that I used to get. And then I absolutely love and adore my Moon Prism palette from Lunar Beauty. There was a point in time this spring when I was reaching for this shade Soleil so much for this really beautiful kind of like shimmery blush shade. I just absolutely love this. We've got some more like neutral nudie leaning blushes, and this is just a staple face palette in my collection, so keeping that. Let's talk about my 2 Hourglass palettes. So I have the Hourglass Ghost Quad, which I absolutely love. This is absolutely most definitely staying in my collection. The dome on this shade right here has worn down quite significantly, and I just think Hourglass makes such a beautiful blush formula, so obviously going to keep that. My Snake palette I purchased last winter, and this is another situation where I feel like I thought that these were the most beautiful shades, but it's not the best for my skin tone. And while I do really love this blush shade, even the bronzer just is not the most flattering bronzer on my skin. I love the packaging. I think it's so fun, but realistically, I just don't think I'm gonna get the use on this palette that it deserves, especially for how much it costs. So I feel like I should pass this along to someone else who this is going to match better. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually am going to declutter the Hourglass Snake palette. Okay. I am also gonna declutter my ABH Moonchild palette. This shade is somewhere, but I've kept this around kind of as an inner corner highlighting palette, and I literally never reach for it, so there's no point in me keeping the ABH Moonchild Glow Kit, but I am gonna keep the Aurora Glow Kit. I do like having this for an inner corner highlighting palette, and I also really like the shade Eclipse on the cheeks at times for a highlight. There is something just special and kind of nostalgic about the Aurora Glow Kit, which is so funny because this, of all the glow kits, I was like, no, I'm never gonna use that, I'm not buying it, and it's like one of the few glow kits that I still use to this day. So this one I will keep. I will also keep my Jaclyn Hill Rouge Romance palette, although I don't really reach for this one. I'm like, should I keep this or should I declutter it? Like, do I really care to have this in my collection? I feel like I kept that Scooby-Doo that has similar shades. Maybe I don't need this in my collection anymore. I feel like I don't. I'm not really reaching for these bright pops of color, and I said I was gonna keep my Scooby-Doo quad. I don't feel like I need this. I think the outer packaging is really pretty, but I shouldn't keep this just for the outer packaging if I'm not reaching for this. I actually am going to declutter this. Okay, that's surprising. I didn't think I was going to do that. I'm definitely keeping Becca Après-Ski. I love this face palette. Oh my gosh, with my whole heart. This is like one of the face palettes I loved even when I didn't love face palettes. It has Becca Rose Quartz, which is my favorite pink tone highlight of all time. And I really should like try and focus on using this bronzer up because I do really enjoy this bronzer as well. So this is staying. I have two face palettes still hidden over here. I have my Dior quad. I have decluttered and recluttered this into my collection. I will say I don't get, like, I'm not really reaching for these two shades right here, but I really do think that these two highlights are beautiful. I've been really liking something kind of peachy like this. This does have a bit of like sparkle, this one specifically, but this is such a beautiful pink as well. I did spend $40 on this, I think, so if I'm reaching for a couple of shades in this, I would like to at least keep this for the time being. We know I love my Natasha Denona Glam face palette, so this is going absolutely nowhere. I actually like this palette most for the eyeshadow shades at the bottom. I enjoy traveling with this palette and we'll be keeping that. My Nicole Guerrero Glow Kit, I am going to keep, but I don't know that I'm going to use this. I feel like I'm like going to retire this product, but keep it in my collection. Nicole Guerrero was one of the first YouTubers I ever started watching. So I feel like I just have like a nostalgic place in my heart for this. Plus I do think some of these highlights still are beautiful. They definitely don't perform like they once did, but I'm gonna keep this. I just don't know that I'll actually get use out of it. Then I have my Nomad Sydney Bathurst palette, and I do like this, but I don't know that I need this in my collection. I really like this pink highlight shade, and I really like the bronzer in here, but I don't get a ton of use out of these two shades. And I really only reach for this palette when I very specifically pull this into a Shop My Stash. And I feel like maybe like this is reminding me of Becca Rose Quartz that I could reach for, and this is reminding me of the Becca bronzer. I actually feel like maybe I just don't need this. I had no intention of decluttering this when I pulled this out. But I'm like looking and I do have a lot of face palettes. Okay, I feel like I can pass this one along. We're gonna pass this one along. And then I'm gonna keep my Patrick Ta Major Holiday face palette. First of all, my daughter loves this. This is like her go-to when she's like wanting to play with makeup. Clearly she played with this blush the other day. And then we have the four really beautiful kind of glitter topper shades that I feel like someday I'm just gonna be so into like a sparkly glitter topper, and I would definitely regret decluttering this if I did. Plus I just like the outer pink packaging, if I must say. So this one will be staying, and as predicted, we're not getting rid of mini face palettes at all. So getting rid of 4 face palettes, and then we are keeping 16. So decluttering 4, keeping 16, but I am at peace with that. I am okay with that. I'm honestly proud of myself for decluttering these 4, plus the duos and trios. So we're gonna call it good for face palettes. Oh, actually, I just forgot. For a trio, I also have my Hourglass Strobe Light palette. No, Ambient Dim. This. Definitely keeping this. So that's one more duo and trio to add to the mix. But anyway, those are the face. That's a face palette collection, and very small declutter. My pillowcase background is definitely getting dirtier as we go along. Anyway, next up is going to be the brow category. I don't have a ton of brow products, but for the most part, I really just like to have, well, I do like to have a pencil in my collection, a tinted brow gel, a brow glue, but lately I really have just been reaching for the Danessa Myricks Groundworks palette for like a cream brow powder. Anyway, let's go through these. Okay, so up first I have my Undone Beauty Duo. This has a tinted brow side and then a marker side. I really like this. I have mine in the shade Dark Brown. This is probably my favorite like tinted brow product. There is just something about, oops, that's the marker side. there is just something about how fine this is and just the fibrous like tint that this gives my brows. I don't know, I just really enjoy this. I have repurchased this, and this is something I anticipate I will continue to have in my collection. I do currently have a NYX micro brow pencil in my collection. I've gone through many of these. I feel like this is the best drugstore brow pencil in my opinion, so I will continue to repurchase this as my brow pencil. I do have the Benefit Precisely My Brow. This is fine, but I personally don't think that this is, like, I'm perfectly fine using the NYX, which is less than half the cost than the Benefit Precisely My Brow. So I'll use this up and then wouldn't repurchase this again. I do have the Benefit 24-Hour Brow Setter Glue. I really enjoy this. However, I am also perfectly happy with the NYX brow glue, and again, that is less than half the cost, so in the future I would just purchase that. But I do currently have the brow setter, which I'll continue to work on, as well as the Benefit like tinted brow gel. I am currently working my way through this. I won't declutter that. I do have a little mini ABH clear brow gel. I was working on finishing up the brow setter before moving on to this, but I do really like the ABH tinted brow or clear brow gel, excuse me. This definitely does set the brows in place, probably more so than any other brow product that I have used. So that I'm keeping. From Mad Love, I have this laminate clear brow gel. I will say this is okay. However, I honestly feel like this makes my brows crispy, but doesn't like hold my brows in place enough to like justify how crispy they are. So I actually think I'm going to declutter the Mad Love, and I'm also going to declutter, I know I'm going to declutter the Kosas Air Brow. I do not feel like this does anything to hold my brows in place. I don't know, I just really don't enjoy that product, so that I'm going to declutter. I do have the ABH Brow Freeze. I feel like I should just declutter the Brow Freeze. I haven't used this at all, but a part of me like kind of wants to use it to know, but then I have to like reach into another tool. Actually, maybe I will. Like, a brow gel is just where it's at for me. I think I actually will declutter this. I was planning to keep this. I actually just think I will declutter because this takes me already so long to get through. Then I have one of the clear brow gels, and then I would just purchase the NYX brow glue. I just much prefer to have an easy on the go product rather than something like this. That's just the way I personally do my brows. And then the final product I have is the eyebrow mousse from Blink. I am not a fan of this at all. First of all, I feel like the product, like, too much comes out on the wand for it being such a little wand. And I just do not love the way that this looks in my brows either. So I am actually going to pass along the Blink eyebrow mousse as well. Meaning for this category, it's almost an even split. I am decluttering 4 and keeping 6. So I guess not quite even. Do I really have 10? I thought I had only 9 products. I guess it's 10. Anyway, keeping 6, decluttering 4. Moving on to shadow singles. We're gonna start with my potted shadows. So maybe let's start with my ColourPop Super Shocks. So up first I have Ritz, which I'm currently working on in my oh my gosh, what am I working on this in my Rolling Project 10 pan. Oh, I should take my watch off. And Ritz is this really beautiful lid topper shade. I'm hoping to finish this year, but with ColourPop Super Shock shadows, I feel like they're just a never-ending product. So I feel like this is compared a lot to, I believe it's Space Cowboy from Urban Decay. I have the old Space Cowboy. I'm gonna swatch those two right next to each other. And I will say that Space Cowboy is almost even more sparkly lid toppery with like even more of a transparent base than Ritz is. And I am gonna keep both. I feel like I would regret decluttering Space Cowboy, even though I don't reach for it that much. Like, that is a very, very beautiful sparkly lid topper, and I could see myself getting like into lid toppers and sparkly things like this and then regretting decluttering this. So I'm gonna keep both of those. I also know I'm going to keep ColourPop Ladybird. I think this is such a beautiful shade. This one definitely is more metallic than these two, which are a little bit more like sparkly. So that one will be staying. And then I also know I definitely want to keep Sail Away from ColourPop. I'm trying to go through the ones like I know I want to keep. Sail Away is also so beautiful. Kind of in between like Lady Bird and Ritz. Definitely like this one. Oh, I'm like, for just like a sparkly peachy with almost like a little champagne sort of peach base. I don't know, it's so pretty. I'm keeping this one too. Okay, I then want to swatch, let's swatch Couche and see. Okay, this one I think is like really, yeah, more metallic. There's Couche swatched right there. My Couche is kind of like chunking apart, and I honestly feel like, I just feel like I don't use Couche enough, and it's like so chunky and messy that's kind of like annoying to reach for and use. It's not necessarily like the same as any of these, probably most close to Lady Bird, but I honestly feel like if I want to reach for, like, I'd rather either reach for a true metallic from like a palette or Lady Bird. So I'm actually going to declutter ColourPop Couche. Then we have ColourPop Flower Child, and this one is definitely more of like a yellow gold sparkly. There it is swatched right there. Can you tell there's a theme to the ColourPop Super Shocks that I like? I'm going to keep Flower Child. I think this is a really beautiful shade as well. Again, I could see myself getting into really sparkly shades and regretting decluttering this, so I will keep Flower Child. And then I believe my last ColourPop Super Shock shadow to swatch is Run Wild, which is definitely more of like a bronzy sort of shade. I can feel this one is feeling a little bit drier. There it is swatched right there. I am going to declutter Run Wild simply because if I'm wanting to reach for like a bronzy shade like this, I have something like this, and honestly probably something I like even a little bit more that's in a palette somewhere. So I will go ahead and declutter Run Wild. I also know I'm going to keep this one from ColourPop. This is a cream shadow in the shade Laurel, which kind of reminds me of like the MAC Painterly paint pot. I've really gotten into using this year, especially just to like set my lid with kind of like an opaque base. I really like this, and I'm kicking myself that it sat in my collection so long unused. So this one I'm keeping. I know I'm going to be decluttering the Merit Solo Shadow. I have the shade Vachetta. I'm like, has mine already dried up? There it is swatched right there. I just don't reach for a potted matte shadow like this, and I found that this formula was really difficult to work with, so that is not something I want to keep around. I also think I might be ready to declutter my Auric Smoke Reflect. I have the shade Defiance. I just do not find myself reaching for this product, and I feel like maybe my sister would really like this, so it's like, why am I personally keeping this in my collection if my sister could get use out of it? So I'm going to declutter that. This one from Surratt, I'm unsure. This is in the shade Grido, I think is how you say it. It is this really interesting kind of like souffle. Like, I've never seen a putty like texture quite like that. There it is swatched right there. This is a really beautiful kind of like dirty taupey sort of shade, and I think I will keep this just because it's a very interesting and unique formula. I think this might be my only Surratt product, and I'd like to at least play around with this and have a little fun with it before officially letting it go. So this one's gonna stay. I think I'll also keep my Victoria Beckham Lid Luster in the shade Tea Rose. This is a really beautiful kind of rose gold shade. There it is swatched right there. Actually, I feel like I want to keep this because it's Victoria Beckham and it's a luxury product, but I literally never reach for this. And I feel like I keep thinking to myself every time I'm in Ulta, I keep wanting to repurchase the Stila Wanderlust Glittering Glow in the shade Wanderlust, which is kind of what I want this to be, but the Stila is so much more metallic and they're not the same. I actually think I'm going to declutter this one. I just do not use this in my collection. I again think my sister would really like this product, so I should pass this along to her and actually allow this product to be loved, as I am not loving it. All right, let's swatch my two chrome paint pots from Tarte. I have Wild at Heart, which is one of my favorite types of like ethereal shades. It's this really beautiful kind of like blue, tealy, champagne, pinky, shifty shade. I do think this is really pretty, but I'm also like, if I'm reaching for something like this, like I would more than likely be reaching for like a shade like this out of like a flower. I don't think I'll miss this. I just do not reach for potted products like this. I am gonna declutter this, and then I think I will also declutter the Top Yacht chrome paint pot. Mine's like so crumbly. It's getting very old. Yeah, I'm gonna declutter that. I'm not getting use out of this. This one specifically was one of the products I included in my these products will self-destruct, and I have maybe reached for it one time. I think it's a beautiful product, but I'm just not reaching for it, so I'd rather pass it along to someone who will actually use it. Okay, and I feel like I feel very similarly to these Essence Metal Shocks. These, I'm so shocked. I've had these for so long and they still feel so like putty-like and bouncy to the touch. So I have the shade Zinc About You, which is the more pink of the two. And then I also have the shade Ironic, which is this one. They are such beautiful metallics. But okay, I want to pull out, okay, I just want to see how these swatch next to my Nearly Natural palette. Okay, they're definitely different. They are different. Oh, it's so tough because I'm just like, I really never reach for these. Like, I really don't, so I really should just declutter both of these. I know I currently have this one going in my Graveyard Project pan, but I'm honestly just like, I literally have had these for so long. I absolutely loved these when I first purchased them, and I like got quite a bit of use out of them, but I feel like I just am not ever reaching for my single potted shadows. Like, it's already probably too much that I've kept the ColourPop Super Shocks. So I actually am gonna declutter both of these from Essence. And then my final two shadows in my collection. So I have the Urban Decay Moon Dust in the shade Solstice, which is a really beautiful kind of blue-brown shade. I love a blue-brown. I am going to keep that shade. And then I also have the shade Lithium, which is a really beautiful kind of like dirty taupey sort of shade, almost with like a shift of green. I really should get more use out of this. I'm like, okay, Solstice though, I'm definitely keeping Lithium. Solstice, I again feel like I'm probably more inclined to just reach for like a blue-brown shade out of, like this reminds me a lot of a shade out of the Flower Moon palette from Ensley Rain, so I probably don't need to keep this just for sake of having already too many single shadows in my collection. So I think I actually will declutter Solstice from Urban Decay, and that means we are keeping 8 of my potted singles, and we are decluttering, ooh, we're decluttering more than we're keeping. We're decluttering 10. Okay, that actually feels so good. I'm probably gonna look in my single shadow drawer and suddenly be really alarmed and be like, I don't have enough single shadows. Potted single shadows, they are definitely a vibe. They're an aesthetic. They look so beautiful on the people that love them, but it is just not the way that I personally consume makeup. So I actually feel really good about decluttering these 10, and honestly even keeping these 8 is probably too much, but for the time being I'm gonna keep these 8. We're decluttering these 10. All right, and then we have cream and liquid. We have shadow sticks and then like cream slash liquid shadows. We have way too many for a girl that literally never used products like this. I will also note, I just kind of glanced over my single shadows. I am gonna try and like rotate through my singles so I can decide like what I truly do want to keep versus don't. So we're not gonna declutter the single shadows today, but here are my cream. Let's do cream shadow sticks first. I feel like this might be easy. I'm definitely going to keep this one from Makeup Forever. I put my watch back on and I'll probably regret that. This is the Aqua Resist Smoky Shadow in the shade 4 Jungle. I do really like having this more so as like a waterline eyeliner, but I'm gonna keep that. And then I'm definitely decluttering this one from Pinky Rose. I'm pretty sure this is it's not dried out, but I much prefer the Laurel Cream Shadow from ColourPop that we just talked about, so I'm gonna declutter this. I also think I'm going to declutter this e.l.f. shadow stick. I just never ever reach for this, and I love a periwinkle shade, so I feel like I thought I was gonna get a lot more use out of this, but I'm not ever laying down like a blue base like that. Even though I love blue shadows, I'm like, girl, you're not gonna use it. You really haven't been. Let's not kid ourselves. This is in the shade Chill Zone. I do think I will keep Sweet Cream, which is just a white. I like having a white in my collection for the waterline. I also have the NYX Jumbo Eyeliner. maybe I'll keep both, but I prefer this to the NYX Jumbo eyeliner, so I'd rather keep that. And then I have a bunch of these Kaja shadow sticks that have the one end that is like a shadow stick, and then the other end is like a glitter you can put on top. I think that these are really pretty, but I probably don't need to keep 5 of them. The one I just swatched is in the shade Champagne Sweet Sequin. I think that one is really pretty, and I would get use out of that, slash have actually used that one. This next one is in the shade Peach Sprinkle. This one I'm not as sure about. Like, I really like this. Oh, I really like the sparkle of that. The sparkle is a little frustrating to use. Like, this one's tough. Like, definitely that metallic on its own I probably wouldn't use. I think I'm gonna declutter that. I don't see myself getting a ton of use out of that. Oh my gosh, I keep going into the wrong end of this first. Okay, this next shade is Mauve Mirage. So we have a matte cream shadow, and then, ooh, that sparkle is really hard to use on this one. The sparkle looks to be like a blue and a purple, but hard to use, and this is just not something I will reach for. So I'm going to declutter that. Then I have another matte shadow. This one is in the shade Mocha Sparkle. That is like a cool tone cream. Or sorry, matte shade. Yeah, these matte like sparkle sides are just not nearly as good. I'm like, do I want to keep this to have like a cream skin tone shade? I might. I think I actually am going to keep this one. And then what is the last one that I have here? Okay, this is in the shade Ice Illusion. So this is one of the metallics. Ooh, that is a very pretty icy shade. I honestly feel like that would make such a pretty inner corner. I am gonna keep that one. So I must have already decluttered one of these, or I'm missing one. Keeping 3 of the Kajas and then decluttering 2, that feels better. I definitely am gonna keep my KVD Hail Surge cream shadow. I love this. I think this is so pretty. There it is swatched right there. It's like this beautiful champagne cream shadow with like a bit of blue and champagne sparkle running throughout. I'm sorry that my air is on and annoying. It seems to be turning down now. I have my Stila Kitten Kaleidoscope. This is so dried out, as you can tell, but I am currently working on this. Do we see that so much of this just fell out? I feel like I do. It's like so pretty. Like the sparkle is so pretty. But do you see how messy that is? This is like, ugh. Is it worth it? I feel like part of me, like the panner's mentality wants to like, even though it's literally like flying all over my desk, I feel like this isn't worth it. I feel like I should just declutter this. And this is why I shouldn't purchase another Stila. But like, honestly, you guys see the sprinklings. I'm gonna declutter that. It just needs to go. Okay, then I have 3 eye paints from About Face. So up first, I have the shade Tin Pan Alley. And I thought I was really gonna love this. Ooh, that was like a chunk. It's like this really icy champagne with like a green running throughout. Yeah, it just like doesn't translate. The few times I've worn it, I haven't loved it, but I'm like, okay, realistically, this should be something that I do love. It's like a very icy green. And maybe it's because when I've used this in the past, I've paired it with like a neutral look and haven't like committed to using this with a green look. That is so pretty. Okay, I'm gonna keep that. Then I have the shade Smell Before Rain, which is a matte. And it's this matte cool tone shadow. Let me see how this compares to Mocha. Mocha is definitely more warm toned. Like I never ever reach for this, but I am gonna keep this though, because I feel like there is a time and a place that maybe would come in handy. And then the last one is the newest to my collection. This is in the shade Smolder, and I purchased because it was cheaper than the Stila, and I thought maybe I would like this the same as the Stila. There it is swatched right there. It definitely isn't everything I was imagining it to be. It's not quite as, like, it's deeper than I really was wanting. But I've only used this a couple of times. I feel like I'm still testing this one, so I'm not yet ready to declutter this one, but I could potentially see myself wanting to declutter in the future. But I also feel like this underneath one of the like flower moon shades that I've been talking about could be really pretty, so I want to try that pairing. So I will keep that. So that means we are decluttering 5 cream slash liquid and we are keeping 9. Do we like that? Yeah, we're gonna keep it this way. Decluttering 5, keeping 9. Okay, that's, I just am like, I know, you know what, these are things where if I still have not really used any of these products by the end of the year, then maybe I will still declutter a few products at the end of the year. But for right now, we're just gonna declutter the 5 and keep the 9. Okay, great. All right, you guys, to wrap up the eye category, I have all of my eyeliners. I do feel like I have an abundance of eyeliner and definitely too many, but at the same time, it's like eyeliner is like not really a fun product to buy. So then why did I end up with this many? So it's like I don't want to declutter something that then like I would be going out to buy again. Anyway, I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but I do love green eyeshadow. So I do have quite a few greens. I don't necessarily know that I'm going to be decluttering the most from my eyeliner collection. I guess we'll see where this video takes us, but I do feel like I potentially have a few too many. We could maybe start with brown eyeliners just because I don't necessarily see myself decluttering much, if any, brown. Brown is definitely my most used eyeliner shade, and I am going to use, it's so much easier for me to swatch on this hand, so I'm sorry if that's annoying, but the first eyeliner that I have here is the Ilia eyeliner in the shade Dusk. It's this very deep brown eyeliner. I use this just about every single day. Again, I do really love like a deep brown eyeliner on the waterline just about every single day. Then I have the Nabla Cupid's Arrow in the shade 2, which is another deep brown, but not quite as deep brown as the shade Dusk. This one is a little bit creamier, but I do really like the Nabla Cupid's Arrow liners. This one is a brown. We'll get to that in a minute. Do I have any other browns? I have this one from Moni Beauty. This is the Waterproof Pencil Gel Liner in the shade 2 Espresso Latte. This is another one that is like a very deep brown, almost teetering on a black, but it is like a deep brown. And again, this is like the type of shade I reach for on just about an everyday basis. So that one I will keep. And then I think aside from these two, that's actually really it for brown. So I have the Nabla Cupid's Arrow in the shade 5, which is a bit of a lighter brown right there, really pretty. And I do like to have this one on days that maybe I'm looking for something a little bit less heavy than like a really deep brown. And then I also have the shade 7 from Nabla as well. Again, the Nabla Cupid's Arrow formula is one of my favorite. This one is definitely more of like a warm red brown, and I really enjoy that one as well. And then the last brown eyeliner I have is the Fenty Fly Liner in the shade In Big Truffle, which is a really, really beautiful brown liner. I really like the Fenty Beauty Fly Liner. I find that the tip is flexible enough that I feel like I can make a wing pretty easily and not feel like super nervous I'm gonna screw everything up. Plus I feel like this sets down pretty quickly and I don't get any issues with this smudging. So I highly recommend the Fenty Beauty Fly Liner. This one's also staying. Then I have, let's see, for a black liner, I have the NYX Epic Ink. Ooh, this one kind of looks very dull and like this one is like drying out. Yeah. That is not as dark black as that one normally is. I think I'm actually gonna declutter this because I do have my Hindash liquid liner right now, which works just fine and is obviously a much darker black. And so I definitely am not gonna be reaching for the NYX because it appears that it's dried out. But I do love the Hindash liner. I like how fine the point on this one is. So that one will stay. And then for another black liquid liner, I also have this one from Kaja, another really deep black liner. I like this one a lot too. This is in the shade Ink Black. And I've always, so Kaja's actually always sent the like liner stamp kits, and that liquid liner always comes in the liner stamp kit. I was gonna say, is my liner stamp dried out? No, it's really not. Okay, keeping my winged liner stamp from Kaja as well. I've raved about that, especially for someone who doesn't feel super confident in wings. Although stamped onto my arm, that definitely bled a little bit. It looks like I have one from Lancome. This is the Ultra Precise Waterproof Liner. I'm sure I got this free gift with purchase. That seems to be working just fine. I am going to keep this. I do like to have black liquid liners in my collection. I do like to tightline with a black liquid liner quite frequently. I'm not always doing a wing, but I do like to tightline. I think that is, those are all of the black liquid liners I have, and then I think the last liquid liner I have is the NYX Epic Wear Waterproof Liner, and this is a cobalt blue shade. And I purchased this last summer and then literally never used it. But I feel like I need to keep this and do, I feel like this would be such a fun wing. I think I just get so nervous to do it, but I could see it being like one of my new favorite looks. And I purchased this and literally have like barely used it, so I need to use that. That I'm gonna keep, but I need to use that. Okay, maybe we can look through all of my like black pencil liners. So I have this one from Wayne Goss. This is like a straight up sharp, well obviously like a lot of these are sharpenable, but this is like truly a pencil. And this is just, I use a black liquid liner, but I really do not use like a black pencil liner, rarely if ever. So I'm going to actually pass that one along. I have this one from Maybelline as well. This one looks like it needs to, oh, this one looks like it's like dried out. Ooh, not really dried out when I swatch it, but like, I feel like that's, yeah, that's not normal. Okay, this we will also get rid of. And then I think the last like black pencil liner I have is Urban Decay Perversion, looks like. Okay, this one needs a sharpen too. Okay, that one is still creamy. And I would like to have one black pencil liner in my collection. This one's getting down there. Like this one is getting to be smaller. So I will keep this one from Urban Decay, but I decluttered the other two. All right, let's do nudes next. So I have from Sephora, I have the Blonde Ambition liner. There is that one swatched right there. That is more of like a metallic. That's really pretty. I feel like my daughter must have like played with this with like blush or whatever. But anyway, that's really pretty. I think like to keep that. I'm gonna swatch this next to Urban Decay's Space Dust. I'm just curious. Oh, okay, those are significantly different. Space Dust is such a cool shade. It's kind of like this greeny gold, and it, depending on what look you wear it with, it really can pull either warm or cool. I really love this liner. I was hoping to potentially finish this year. I don't necessarily know that I will finish it, just because even though I'm down to like this little nub, these liners I feel like still go on forever, but I do love this. I feel like it's a really versatile shade, and I enjoy having that in my collection, so that one's gonna stay. I also have the Urban Decay Game of Thrones Lannister Gold. And I literally feel like Lannister Gold is Space Cowboy or Space Dust repackaged. Like, I'm even curious. Okay, that's a little bit different. And looking really closely, I'm like, okay, maybe Lannister Gold actually pulls a little bit more cool, even a little bit more silver, but those are practically the same. But I do really like having this in my collection, and I feel like I get a lot of use out of it. So I'm gonna keep Lannister Gold as well. And then I believe the last nude I have is from Essence. It's the Extreme Lasting Pencil in the shade 6 Silky Nude, which is truly just like a nude. And I really like having a nude in my collection as well, because it's not quite as stark as a white. So if I'm wanting something lighter in the waterline but not quite a white, then I'll reach into Silky Nude. I do, speaking of a white, have the NYX Jumbo Pencil, and I know I kept the white one from e.l.f. as well, and I probably don't need both. But I also feel like I would get used, I feel like I would declutter this just to declutter, and this is something that I actually decluttered in the past and then actually repurchased because I wanted something like this in my collection. It works still just fine, so I feel like I shouldn't declutter that. I will, however, declutter this Wet n Wild multi-stick. This is in the shade, I feel like this could have gone in either eyeliners or cream shadows. There, that is swatched right there. That is just, this is not something I'm reaching for, whether it be on the eyes or in the waterline. In the waterline, I feel like it almost makes me look like my eyes are like tired and bruised. So that one I will declutter. I am on to, well, I have this yellow, and then I'm really on to blues and greens. So I have this one from LA Girl. This is the Shockwave pencil in the shade Screamin'. I purchased this because I do love like a bright, vibrant neon, but I feel like this just doesn't really translate exactly what I'm looking for. I want to swatch Sephora's lime green next to it. Like, I feel like I'll end up decluttering the yellow and then regret it, but lime green I'm definitely keeping. I love that. I feel like this is just like almost looks sickly though, and almost like you have like jaundice potentially. I actually think I'm going to declutter the yellow if I'm wanting, like, I feel like I'd rather reach for something like this. I know that these two things are not alike, but I feel like I just feel like I'm not gonna get use out of that. So I'm gonna declutter that. I actually may end up decluttering all of my Shockwave pencils. I really enjoyed these at one point in time. Actually, I will keep this one. I feel like this would be valuable to have to my collection. This is the LA Girl eyeliner in the shade Electric. That is a really fun blue right there. So Electric I will keep. And then I also have Fresh, which is this minty shade, and I feel like I've tried to get myself to use this and tried to get myself to use this, and I just do not care for like, I'm not a mint type of a girl, and so I'm just not reaching for something like this, and I don't feel like I'll miss having this in my collection, so I am going to declutter that. And then I also have this one, which is in the shade Dragon. I don't know, I'm like, have I ever reached for this? I probably have. Okay, Dragon is pretty, but how similar is it to like Urban Decay's Viper? I'm just curious. Not exactly the same. I'm gonna also swatch the ColourPop Color Stick in the shade Hummingbird near that. Hummingbird is more similar, but the Shockwave is definitely more like green metallic, whereas this is more of like an aqua blue. I'm definitely going to keep the ColourPop stick. I think that's such a fun kind of like sparkly pool water sort of shade. I'm also going to keep Viper from Urban Decay. I'm unclear on whether or not I want to keep this one. I'm going to think about that for a minute. Let's swatch my navies. I think I will keep all of my navy blues. So here is the Mainline. This is in the shade Mainline from Urban Decay. A really beautiful navy. Then I have the Urban Decay liner in the shade Goddess, which is like a navy blue with like a sparkle or like a blue sparkle running throughout it, almost like a black. I recluttered this one back into my collection because I've been so into blue eyeshadow looks. But as I'm looking at that, I'm like, okay, that really is, I do want to keep that. I do really like blue looks. And then I have the Nabla Cupid's Arrow in the shade 6, which is that one swatched right there, a very, very deep navy. Similar to the Urban Decay, but the Urban Decay kind of has, the Urban Decay is almost like a black with a navy glitter running throughout, where this is just like a true navy. I am going to for sure keep these two. I'm going to still think about this one for a second. Okay, I know I'm keeping my Haus Labs Cobalt Blue liner. I absolutely love this eyeliner. Absolutely love it. Cobalt Blue is like a favorite color of mine, so that one is definitely staying. Okay, then I have Urban Decay's Mildew, which I'll swatch right there. Really beautiful green, and I like having these kind of like dirty greens for when I do green looks. Then I have the shade High Vibes, which is swatched right there. It kind of has, it's like a dark, almost like a dark army green with like gold glitter running throughout. Very pretty. And then I have the shade Freak, which is more of like this bright metallic green, which I also really enjoy having in my collection. So I'm gonna keep those three greens which brings me back to just these two right here. So I have Goddess and then I have Dragon. Dragon I don't feel like I need. I feel like I'd rather, if I'm wanting, I feel like I'd rather reach for like this shade right here. I know that these two aren't exactly the same, but I just feel like, again, I'm not really doing like a lot of teal looks similar to this so much. So I'm gonna declutter that one. And then I actually, let me go put this in my waterline quick. Okay, I'm feeling a bit torn on this one. So I think I'm gonna keep this one for right now. And then as we get to the winter, when I would likely be reaching for this more frequently as I do more blue looks, if I'm not getting a lot of use out of this, perhaps I would declutter this before the end of the year. But for right now, I am going to keep this. And that means we are keeping 28 pencils, which I know is a lot. I do understand. But they all fit so nice and easily in my little way candle. And then I am decluttering 7. Decluttering 7, keeping 27. So that is it for the eyes. All right, you guys, that is it for today's final cut of my declutter series. That is it for this declutter series. I don't plan to get rid of a lot more before the end of the year. Again, maybe there'll be a few products here and there that I kind of make that final decision on and do like kind of a roundup. Depends on how many products. But I will say it is several days later. Honestly, it's probably over a week and a half since I've decluttered my foundations, and I also decided to declutter my Huda Beauty Glowish because I wore it one day to work and I just wasn't feeling it anymore. But that is it, you guys. Thank you so much for sticking around through this declutter series, for your support, your feedback, your comments. I appreciate it and I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.